Meet the main character of our story, and we meet him when he dies, choking on jelly. To everyone else, this situation looks rather comical, but his journey is just beginning, because something amazing is happening. Like the main character of some manga, he dies and wakes up in another place that seems completely unfamiliar to him. One of his comrades bursts in on him, addresses him by the name of Cedric, and informs him that they have killed his father. Cedric is surprised and asks if his father has ended up here too, but they don't understand him, assuming he's talking nonsense because he's half asleep. Instead, his friend grabs him by the hand and leads him into the yard so that he can see everything with his own eyes. A few moments later, he sees that on the very first day of his adventure, his father was convicted of something and hanged. Cedric is still trying to figure out what to do in this strange world, while the guard stares at him. The leader of the guard reports that the hero's mother died in childbirth, and his father fled to this village with debts. He comes to the conclusion that if you forget about what the hero's father did, then Cedric can very well be considered a good guy. Suddenly, the captain of the guard appears behind them, glaring at everyone with his one eye. The evil guard claims that this guy saw his dead father and didn't cry, which means he is also a spy. The captain turns to a girl named Leah to check him for espionage. Leah immediately goes to the main character and orders him to give her his hand. After this, she places his hand on the area where her heart is, and Cedric is surprised by the method of this world. Fantasies begin to form in his head that he will now show this world his strength. He assumes that he has received a great talent after reincarnation and will now become the strongest in the universe. He is confident that the magic he possesses will be able to destroy the girl's clothes, putting her in an awkward position. This way, everyone will immediately understand that his power is too great for a spy, and they will treat him with respect. He also hopes to learn magic in the palace, and over time, he and the princess will develop mutual feelings. The princess will marry him in a couple of years, and he will become the new ruler after the death of the old king. Cedric gets too carried away by these dreams, not paying attention to the fact that the test is already over. Leah states in a bored voice that he has no magical or other powers and is trash, not worth paying attention to. Cedric is very surprised by this turn of events, as he had already imagined an ideal life for himself. Falling to his knees, he tries to accept the reality where he has little strength and even less intelligence. He begins to console himself by assuming that his power is probably hidden within his soul and has not yet awakened. Leah says that this man is crazy and talking nonsense, which means he is unlikely to be a spy. The guards and ordinary residents gradually disperse, leaving Cedric alone. Only one of his comrades decides to come closer to him and try to console him in this situation. Cedric states that he would like to know something before he goes on his way. He asks with interest how exactly things are bought and sold in this world. The comrade replies that he can buy things as long as he has gold and silver coins. Cedric says he wants to exchange all the assets he owns. The next stage of his plan is to go to the capital and set up his own business there, for which he needs to find a bank. Filled with determination, he states that his first goal is to earn 100 million in this world. Meanwhile, the guard combs the village and comes to the conclusion that they have nothing more to do here. Cedric is currently trying to sell his house and all the things in it for just 100 gold. The townspeople watching him think he has gone mad and do not understand what motivates him. An old and experienced peasant approaches the hero and advises him to stop selling all of this. He blames himself for failing to protect Cedric's father, as he was certainly not a traitor. After rummaging through his pockets, he hands him a bag with 100 gold coins, advising him to bury his father and start life anew. Cedric thanks him for such a gift, realizing that this should be enough to start a business. From the villagers, he learns that money in this world is divided into gold and silver. On average, each person here earns up to 3 gold coins a year, and that's already a good starting point. Cedric analyzes his chances and realizes that 100 gold coins are clearly not enough for the capital. However, he realizes that he has nowhere else to go, so he packs his things and prepares for the journey. A friend asks if he has really decided to leave the village, and Cedric replies that he needs to earn money. His comrade can't believe he decided to leave them, adding that it comes as a shock to him. He reminds him that a girl in the village is in love with Cedric, so he must stay and learn a craft. Cedric says that he is leaving at night, and the girl will not notice, and if anything happens, he will say that he himself does not love her. He immediately asks his friend if he would like to give him money, promising to return twice as much. The friend replies that his family doesn't earn much, but he can lend him his dad. Cedric asks if he really wants to lend him his father, and his comrade adds that he meant something else. It turns out that he calls the riding animal that served him faithfully his dad. Cedric says he is interested in the offer, and after a while sees a large bird in front of him. He realizes that it is simply a huge, overgrown ostrich that is being used as a horse for some reason. Cedric is still skeptical about the idea of a riding bird, as it is not as comfortable as a horse. His friend claims that this bird is very docile, despite the fact that it has specific shortcomings. Cedric understands that this is all he has now, so there is no point in being capricious. Grabbing the animal's reins, he declares that it will definitely be useful to him in the capital. The first 16 attempts to tame this animal are unsuccessful, but the main character does not give up and continues. Thus, he finally manages to tame this difficult bird, which was simply tired of throwing him off. The next morning he collects all his things and money, after which he sets off for the capital, having first said goodbye to his friend. He also sees the same girl who once liked him, but does not attach much importance to this. The thing is that he is no longer the same person he was before the time travel, and he needs to earn a lot of money. He also hopes to marry the sorceress, after which he turns to his ostrich, now named Alibaba. Cedric changed his name because it sounded rich and was believed to bring good luck. For some time there are no incidents on the road, but at one terrible moment the ostrich suddenly stops. Cedric asks his mount what happened, but it begins to tremble with fear. Cedric slowly dismounts and decides to find out what could have frightened this creature so much. After walking several dozen meters forward and overcoming small obstacles, he suddenly stumbles upon a large sarcophagus. Around the sarcophagus lies a huge number of people who have already turned into white skeletons. Cedric realizes that these people remind him of someone, and images flash through his head. He guesses that these people came to the village yesterday, but the girl's skeleton is still not here. Cedric wonders tensely about what happened to them, assuming that the coffin is to blame. He approaches the sarcophagus closer, feeling a huge amount of magical particles swirling around him. Curiosity is often punished, and this world is no exception, because the coffin begins to move. The lid is thrown aside by itself, and the contents of the sarcophagus begin to shine with a bright beam of light. Cedric still takes a few steps towards the unknown artifact, trying to figure out what is there. A sleeping girl appears before his face, looking just like the real thing. Cedric takes a closer look at her, and discovers that a remarkable ring is buried there with her. Looking around fearfully, he realizes that it all looks quite nice, but the skeletons clearly make him wary. He comes up with the idea of taking these things and selling them, since the dead no longer need them. After some time, he completes preparations for his further journey and feels severe fatigue in his muscles. However, he cannot resist the temptation to take the ring, which looks valuable and expensive. But as soon as he extends his hand, the ring suddenly flies into the air on its own, glowing mystically. Before Cedric can even figure out what he needs to do, the ring emits a powerful energy pulse. Along with this impulse, the butterfly symbol suddenly appears on the forehead of the girl who is sleeping peacefully. Immediately after this, the symbol moves to the mystical ring, and the girl's body completely disappears. Cedric is surprised that all things, as well as the girl herself, are absorbed by this ring. He wonders if someone has decided to give him a gift, or on the contrary, is trying to interfere. Smiling, he puts the ring on his finger and realizes that it will clearly help him get rich. Realizing that this is a strange stopover on the way to the capital, he decides not to stay here any longer and packs his things. After this, he continues his long journey to the capital, hoping that he will not encounter any more incidents. Fortunately, his hopes are justified, and the further journey really does not present any difficulties. Having arrived in the legendary capital, he cannot resist the temptation to explore it from top to bottom. He really likes the fact that the market square, where the most important deals are concluded, is quite lively. He discovers a giant mount, and immediately hopes to be able to purchase it, which angers the ostrich. He also pays attention to beautiful girls, whom he likes much more than those in the village. Noticing his attention, the girls wave to him and say hello politely. Cedric remembers that in the old world all the beauties had the same face, but here there are girls of different races. A couple of minutes later, he finds a real treasure in the form of a palace for adult pleasures. One of the establishment's employees greets him and asks if he would like to come visit them. Cedric immediately comes up with a rationale for why he should go there immediately, because he needs to open a business. After some time, he is met by a beautiful girl who asks if he really wants to use their services. She also looks at his clothes and notes that they are quite expensive and he does not look rich. A moment later, it occurs to her that this is an unusual villager who has come here by mistake. Cedric proudly takes out a bag of money and says that he clearly has enough finances. Smiling, she says that in that case there are no problems, and escorts him to the designated room. Cedric carefully studies the surroundings, realizing that he has entered a real hotel for adults. The girl urges him on, insisting that he shouldn't stand in the doorway so as not to delay the others. Cedric reflects that he is a very decent young man and just wants to have a drink with her and talk. The girl turns around and invites him to sit on the bed, saying that very soon he will be able to relax. Cedric sits down on the bed and tries to figure out how to react in this situation, since he has never been with a woman. Suddenly, she hands him a piece of paper, telling him that he should write his name and wish here. Cedric admits that he has never been there before, and is told that they do not provide intimate services. Smiling, the girl turns around and expresses a desire to tell him exactly what will happen to him. Opening a small closet, she explains that their main job is to take care of guests. The workers at this establishment are succubi and do not get drunk, so they can put a person to sleep by inducing the desired dreams. Taking his hand, the girl says that she can fulfill any of his wishes. Cedric asks her if it is possible to find out exactly how much their services cost. She smiles and slowly gets out of bed to head to the liquor cabinet. She states that the price is also calculated based on the quantity and quality of alcohol to make it easier to fall asleep. She then points to the bottle and says that the most expensive one will cost 300,000 gold. Cedric asks how much the cheapest one costs, and she states that the cheapest one only costs 100 gold. Cedric understands that such prices are beyond his means, since he still needs something to live on. He comes up with the idea of selling the things he was able to get after stopping in the forest. Unfortunately, however, they are caught in a circle and he has no idea how to get them back. This puts him in an awkward situation, as he now has to somehow explain why he can't pay. He looks tensely at the girl, who is already beginning to suspect something, and quickly goes through the options. One part of his mind suggests selling everything and relaxing, but common sense recommends holding off. He understands that it is better to save money for starting a business and not give in to temptation. This makes sense, as it's important for a business to save as much money as possible and not waste energy. Cedric decides not to deprive himself of his future for the sake of one night of pleasure, since he still has time for everything in this life. After this, he kneels before the succubus, wanting to justify himself and ask for forgiveness. He tells her that he actually has very little money, so he cannot afford wine. He also adds that he came here only out of curiosity, and she shows leniency. She asks him to get up from his knees, claiming that there is no need for such behavior. However, she pats him on the cheek, saying that they have a lot of work, and this is very impolite. Smiling, she reassures him, adding that this time she forgives him. Cedric thanks her for her generosity, promises to remember it and be sure to repay her. The succubus notes that he looks like a child who ran away from the village, so she is not angry with him. Cedric happily says that in that case he won't delay them anymore, but she immediately stops him. She says that if he leaves now and the manager notices him, it will clearly not end well. She immediately adds that the manager is a very scary person. From her point of view, if the manager found out that he was there without spending money, he would call security. Cedric falls to his knees again and asks the mysterious succubus to help him get out of here. The girl says that if the manager finds out about this, he will deduct it from her salary. Cedric asks how he can help, and the girl states that she has an assignment. After this, she shows him a small scroll with a picture of a bottle that needs to be retrieved. The girl sternly tells him that he must go to another area and buy her a bottle of jelly potion. She assures him that if he can handle this, she will definitely help him and give him shelter. Cedric asks her what the potion is, but she only gives a vague explanation, claiming that she really needs it. After this, she sees him off, telling him that he can go and tell the manager that he has an errand. However, before he prepares to walk out the door, she stops him to give him some advice. Looking at him with a murderous gaze, she assures him that he will not be able to hide if he tries to deceive them. Cedric nods quickly before opening the door and scanning the area for any strangers. Smiling, he realizes that the manager is not here, so it is better to leave right now to avoid running into him. Looking at the scroll, he realizes that it even contains a detailed map, so he can complete his task easily. After this, he gets to his mount, which can quickly deliver him to the required area. Gradually untying it, he asks if it has been bored during the time he was absent. Looking at the ostrich, he realizes that he actually feels sorry for it. It is too painful a topic for him after what happened. With tears in his eyes, he remembers how he slowly died while eating his favorite jelly, and he finds this ironic. He also wonders who found him first, suggesting that his body was most likely discovered by his colleagues. After some time, he finally gets to the potion shop and decides to explore it in as much detail as possible. Looking around, he realizes that this store is somewhat reminiscent of a jewelry store, and his eyes run wild. A beautiful elven girl appears before him and asks if she can help him with anything. Cedric is impressed by her beauty and shows her the potion he would like to buy. Watching her actions, he realizes that she looks incredibly cute and pleases his eyes. After a few moments, she turns around and says that the potion will cost about 80 gold. However, as soon as she tries to hand him the potion, she slips and starts waving her arms. Unable to stay on her feet, she falls forward, the potion slipping from her hands. On top of everything else, she hits her head on a cabinet overflowing with a large number of potions. Naturally, the bottles cannot withstand such a powerful blow, and immediately begin to fall to the ground. Thus, the unfortunate employee of this pharmacy finds herself covered in various potions. The jelly potion immediately begins to move, as if some creature were trapped within it. The pharmacy owner comes out of the storeroom to find out what is going on and why there is such a noise. The girl says that she is a little stuck and can't get out of this strange puddle. The owner immediately turns to people, declaring that she needs to be saved before it is too late. A magician emerges from the crowd and claims that he can pull her out no matter what. Cedric watches the man closely and discovers that he has extraordinary magical abilities. A mysterious seal that appears near the man's hand emits a beam of energy. The pharmacy owner immediately begins to scold a girl named Louise for causing another disaster. He also reminds her that she has broken too many potions in 2 days, and at this rate, he will have a heart attack. Cedric watches her with a smile, understanding who is causing the potion shortage in the area. The pharmacy owner remains angry and declares that he will sell her to a brothel to pay off his debts. Cedric suddenly asserts that one cannot blame the staff even if they make mistakes. The angry owner asks him who he is, calling him a pathetic ragamuffin. Cedric takes out a bag of money and says that he is the same customer, and that the manager should not look down on the client. The pharmacy owner smells money and immediately changes his rhetoric, saying that he will serve the customer himself. Returning to the ostrich, Cedric reflects on how hard it is to be a hired hand even in another world. He sadly notes that the weak will simply be suppressed by the strong, since this law works everywhere. After this, he sits on his ostrich and says that it is time to go back. He makes his way to the brothel at full speed to return the potion to his employer. Cedric asks her what the potion is for and genuinely wonders why he should care. Cedric notes with a smile that he saw an employee break a similar jar, and a strange creature crawl out of it. The succubus girl immediately hits him on the forehead, saying that he is clearly thinking about something stupid and meaningless. After this, she explains that as long as the potion is not spoiled, it behaves absolutely normally. Cedric takes out the pouch and notes that he still has 20 gold left after purchasing this potion. The girl states that in this case he can keep the money as a reward for completing the task. Cedric says it's quite a generous reward, but she replies that he fully deserves it. She also opens a secret room for him, in which he will now be able to live for a while. She smiles and notes that she had thought about giving him a bunk in the warehouse, but he had done well and deserved better conditions. She also advises him to be very quiet and not disturb anyone if he wants to keep this place. Cedric responsibly declares that he will not cause any trouble and will behave as quiet as a mouse. That same night, lying in his bed, he reflects on how much he has gained in such a short period of time. Turning around, he sadly realizes that people in this world do not have food delivery, and this is quite inconvenient. However, after some time, he came up with a brilliant idea that this area could be developed as a business. He asks himself why he doesn't start a delivery farm and become a tycoon. The next morning, he gets out of his bed and goes to the shower to freshen up. Looking at himself in the mirror, he notes that he looks amazing, as always. However, his clothes don't look very nice, and this needs to be fixed immediately by going to the store. In the hallway, he runs into his girlfriend and tells her that he wants to go for a walk to see the area. Smiling, she says that in that case she wishes him luck in achieving what he wants. She also invites him to her place so that he can relax once he earns enough money. Cedric says he'll think about it, then leaves the brothel to face adventure. Having mounted the ostrich, he comes to the conclusion that now is the ideal time to study the market in detail. He moves forward, carefully examining each seller and the assortment they offer. After carefully analyzing everything, he comes to the conclusion that the economy is quite well developed, but there is still a lack of delivery. He understands that people in this world tend to rely on mail to send small items and letters, but it is not always convenient. Of course, large loads need to be transported using methods that are archaic from a modern point of view, and this complicates everything. Cedric wonders what kind of mercenaries would be suitable for guarding a wagon with high-level items. Cedric realizes that this is a very convenient solution, as the cart can accommodate a huge amount of things while maintaining stealth. He concludes that as the business grows, it will be better to hire people who have or can use such items. Right now, in his opinion, it is better to work independently and handle all the tasks alone in order to earn money. Looking at himself, he also understands that he needs to look decent in order not to cause rejection. Quite quickly, he finds a clothing store and decides to change his image to a more presentable and businesslike one. After some time, for the price of only a few gold coins, he buys himself very decent clothes. Mounting his ostrich, he orders it to go to the potion market to arrange the first deal. Without thinking twice, he goes into the same potion shop where he was yesterday on behalf of his friend. The owner of this store is very surprised to see him in such an outfit, considering that yesterday he looked like a simple poor man. Cedric states that he came here to establish a partnership with this potion shop. He says he wants to start a courier company and can help deliver goods to customers in record time. The shop owner notes that yesterday he saw Cedric for the first time, and today he comes in disguise and makes a similar offer. Cedric advises him to be simpler, assuring him that he is an intelligent man and will perfectly understand his intentions. Smiling, he explains that yesterday he bought a potion for 80 coins, and obviously not for himself. He states that he was simply asked to carry out an assignment, and that this is the key to success. He explains that yesterday the girl asked him to deliver this potion to her, since the stores near her did not have the necessary selection. He boasts of his communication skills with people, because he arrived in this city only yesterday, and has already managed to establish connections. Cedric advertises his services by saying that he can deliver goods incredibly quickly, which will attract new customers. After thinking for a while, the store owner agrees, and says that he will take him on for a trial period. Cedric suggests a 2-week trial period, and if he can find good clients during that time, he will receive payment. The shop owner agrees to this proposal, and they shake hands as a sign of consent, and the agreement concluded. Cedric also introduces himself to make it easier for them to communicate in the future. Suddenly, Louise emerges from the closet, dreamily thinking about something, not paying attention to those in front of her. The owner asks her if she has cleaned the warehouse, and the girl, with tears in her eyes, admits that she forgot about it. After this, he waves his hand at her and says that it doesn't matter to him anymore, after which she thanks him for his short-term concern. Cedric wonders why she is leaving, and the owner replies that he fired her due to inefficiency. Meanwhile, Louise stumbles upon the large ostrich that the main character rode on and decides to go closer. She instantly captivates this animal, begins to stroke it and laughs sincerely, while the ostrich is a little embarrassed. Cedric goes outside, and is surprised to find that the ostrich, who had been rather unsociable, is delighted to be petted by a stranger. Louise notices Cedric and remembers that he came to them yesterday to buy a potion. Louise apologizes to him, assuring him that she didn't mean to bother him, but Cedric replies that he wanted to help her. He also wonders why the ostrich suddenly began to perceive her as someone close, although they see each other for the first time. Louise explains that all elves are good at communicating with animals, unlike other races, which is why the ostrich treats her so well. Cedric realizes that if she can communicate with animals, then she should definitely be hired, especially considering that she is currently unemployed. Cedric comes closer to her, puts his hand on her shoulder and asks her what her name is. Immediately after this, he asks her if she would like to work for him, promising a decent salary and good conditions. Louise can't believe her eyes and asks him if he's really ready to let her work for him. She sadly explains that she is clumsy and does most things poorly, so she is not suitable for such tasks. Cedric doesn't let her leave and insists that he will definitely give her a job that will be perfect and won't cause any problems. He also makes a promise that he will not scold her if she makes mistakes and asks if she agrees with this. Louise turns away and asks why he wants to hire her, since there are quite a lot of workers. Cedric says he wants to start a company that delivers goods quickly, and to do that he needs someone who can talk to ostriches. Cedric promises to provide housing so that Louise does not spend money on another hotel. Louise agrees to these terms, and Cedric is pleased that he was able to attract another worker to his side. He immediately offers her a trial period before the official appointment, so that she can see if the job is right for her. Louise looks at him with eyes full of incomprehension, and asks him what the probationary period is like. Cedric tries to explain a concept from the modern world to her, saying that it will be easier for both of them. He tells her that during the probationary period she will not receive a salary, but she will be provided with food and housing. Louise says that she has nothing to lose anyway, so she agrees to these conditions. Cedric happily hands her the contract and tells her that she must read the terms and sign in the appropriate places. Louise carefully studies what is written there, and then puts a tick in the necessary places. After that, they go to the hotel to book a double room. Moving on, they find themselves in a small room with 2 beds, which can accommodate them in great comfort. Louise wonders if they will really be living together, and Cedric states that it is a temporary measure and that she will have her own room later. After a few moments, her stomach begins to rumble loudly, and Cedric realizes that she hasn't eaten anything for a long time. Cedric suggests heading to the canteen, since it's very difficult to work on an empty stomach. Louise looks at her new boss, and is happy that he is incredibly kind to her. However, as soon as she looks at the food Cedric orders for her, her enthusiasm fades a little. Cedric doesn't deny himself anything, and treats himself to properly recharge his batteries, Louise asks him if they will really eat such food all the time, realizing that now she does not really want it. Cedric reassures her that this is all temporary, and that difficulties are natural for a starting business. Cedric watches Louise eat and assumes that no one fed her yesterday either, despite her silence about it. He quickly does the math, realizing that he has found one employee, but that it is still not enough to run the business. Cedric suggests that they could start by sending her out to distribute flyers to attract more customers. In 2 weeks, he is already planning to hire employees to deliver orders from the potion shop in order to make his first profit. At this point, he is going to go to other stores to make profitable deals and seek cooperation. If everything goes smoothly, he expects to recruit 10 employees within a month to work with 10 stores, and then create a corporation. Thus, with the help of this simple business plan, he will be able to become a millionaire in another world and earn exceptional wealth. In the first week, he personally delivers the order with his faithful ostrich and receives his first salary. He is discussing cooperation with 5 stores, 2 of which are grocery stores and 3 are industrial stores. Of course, he tries to convince everyone that the goods will arrive in the city the next day in the best condition. He also decides to attract new employees and asks Louise to hand out leaflets dressed as a maid to attract a younger audience. Even though she often falls and gets into awkward situations, it plays into his hands rather than harming his reputation. In this way, he approaches the most important stage of the selection process, namely, interviewing everyone who decides to work for them. At first, things don't go very well because, seduced by a beautiful girl, the workers clearly don't understand what exactly they'll need to do. This also leads to quite a few people giving up, realizing that the job doesn't look that attractive. Suddenly, a magical student comes to him, who has just left the college and decides to find himself a worthy occupation. However, this magician asks too high a price for his services and does not have the necessary skills. Because of this, another refusal has to be made, and yesterday's graduate arrogantly leaves our hero's office. He is also approached by mothers who are trying to get their sons jobs without the involvement of their offspring. A loader even comes to him and admits that he has no skills, but he is not averse to carrying out orders and moving any heavy objects. Cedric understands that being a recruiter is not an easy job, as you have all sorts of people coming to you, including traders. After some time, a rather sad man comes to him, who is somewhat similar to himself. He shares a heartbreaking story about how he was fired from his job and his wife left him, so he just wanders around looking for something. The man says that now all he can do is want to get a job and start from scratch, but he won't be hired anywhere. After this, he begins to cry and feel sorry for himself, claiming that everything in his life has come to an end and that he has completely failed. After this, he states that no one wants losers, so he will not waste Cedric's time and will simply leave. Cedric stops him, saying that perhaps there is still a chance for him and not all is lost. He asks this unfortunate man if he can carry out small errands, and he answers in the affirmative. After this, he inquires about the man's willingness to fight with all his might to save his life. The young man declares that he will do absolutely everything possible, if only he is given the chance to start over. Cedric congratulates him, saying that he is hiring him to work for him in order to fight for a better future together. The man wipes away his tears and thanks him for being a real savior for him. That evening he gathers his comrades, saying that the interview is over and wants to raise their cohesion. He says that right now they are an insignificant force in this world, but as long as they work together, everything will be fine. He also proudly announces the establishment of Shanfeng Express Company to share this joy with his employees. After some time, they again find themselves near the House of Public Entertainment to check how things are going. One of the employees notices a man dressed in a specific uniform and riding an ostrich. She tells her colleague that these are people who deliver goods, and lately they have been appearing more and more often. She also notes that she is haunted by the feeling that she has already seen someone similar about a month ago. Her colleague also wonders whether it is worth contacting these people to buy the jelly potion, but she is advised to return to work. Meanwhile, one of the couriers continues to do his job conscientiously and honestly. At a certain point, other people approach him and ask him what he is doing, noting that they have never seen such clothes. He politely tells them that he is an employee of a courier company, and this outfit is his work uniform. One of the old men comes to the conclusion that he can contact him in order to buy things from other companies. The courier, smiling, explains that this is exactly how it works, adding that to order you just need to name the item and pay the price. Nearby sellers say that this is quite convenient and decide to establish cooperation with their company. After the establishment of this company, the activity proceeds very smoothly, and the scale expands to 10 people. The company is officially located on a small alley, which is very easy for ordinary people to get to. The employees are discussing how their fame is now growing, and their orders are increasing exponentially. They also happily welcome Cedric, who decides to visit them, and at the same time sort out things from the head office. Louise notices that Cedric is wearing very strange clothes for that time, which no one had heard of at that time. Cedric says that it is called a suit, and he made it specifically for personal wear only. He explains that he only wears this garment in official and formal settings, and that it makes him look more serious. He also tells his comrades that their uniforms are made personally according to his requirements, and should be very comfortable. Besides, a distinctive appearance can make them easily memorable and recognizable, which will only increase sales. The employees look at their boss with joy and say that he is very wise, and as always, right in everything. Meanwhile, Cedric says that today he is coming up with another brilliant strategy that he would like to discuss with them. Sitting down at a table, he says that he would like to form a takeaway department in order to expand the company's functionality. He invites them to a restaurant, saying that they have worked hard today and need to properly recuperate. Louise approaches her boss, saying that she would like to discuss something with him. Cedric asks her what happened, and Louise begins to hint that she would like to become the head of the new food delivery project. Cedric says that he has already thought about it, and Louise asks him what he thinks of her candidacy. Cedric reminds her that she eats like an army of hungry Vikings every time and can eat the food ordered by customers. Louise says that this will not happen, but Cedric invites her to participate in advertising campaigns again in cute suits. Louise says that if her boss tells her to do something, she will follow his instructions. Cedric also says that he actually made a decision a long time ago about who he would give this position to. With these words, he approaches his comrade, whom he recently hired, and puts his hand on his shoulder. He immediately asks him what he thinks about their new project, which he just proposed to them. The man replies that delivering food to people's homes is a very interesting idea, but it requires them to be very fast and stable. He states that it won't be a problem for him, and Cedric says that his results are the best, so he will be the head of this project. The courier asks in surprise if he will really allow him to be the head of the new project, since he has only been working for him for a month. Cedric confirms his question, saying that he is the perfect person for the job. Tears appear on the courier's face, and he immediately hugs him, saying that he is grateful to be given such an honor. After this, he says that he agrees to such a proposal, and that he will always be faithful to him until his last breath. Cedric suggests that he stand up so that they can properly discuss this business proposal and think everything through carefully. He puts his hands on his shoulders and expresses sincere confidence that he will do his best and live up to his expectations. He also addresses other employees, telling them that they must do their best and put in even more effort. The next day, a large number of people come to their office wanting to place an order. The new manager of this project says that all they have to do is contribute part of the principal amount, and payments will come in every week. Once a takeaway branch is established, there are a lot of customers who want to try this service. At first, they collaborate with one small restaurant located next to them, and this turns out to be enough. However, their customers are so satisfied with the service that even more restaurants are expressing their desire to collaborate. If this continues, Cedric's company will become the most popular company in the entire capital. At this rate, 5 months have already passed since the company's founding, and the long-awaited and pleasant spring is approaching. During these 5 months, all employees have been working very hard, and the company's financial affairs have only been on the rise. Their reputation is growing, which allows them to cooperate with a large number of restaurants and other businesses. Thanks to all this, the company begins to earn more and more money, becoming more and more influential. Cedric realizes that their company is expanding well, and now has over 100 excellent employees. He also establishes several functional departments, each of which strives to perform its tasks as efficiently as possible. All of this is a prerequisite for their company to become more successful and influential. Currently, their company earns 30,000 gold coins a month, and its reputation continues to spread. Everyone starts to think that Cedric is a talented businessman, and that's why he starts to face some problems. Guests from the trade union come to him, who probably come here with a dark and incomprehensible proposal. A tax commissioner from the capital's trade union named Lucas comes to visit him and exchanges pleasantries with him. Cedric also says that he has heard a lot about him, and is very happy to welcome him into his office. He invites him to sit down, stating that he never expected to see him in person to talk. Lucas asks him if he knows why he came, and Cedric replies that he has one small guess. He says that companies with a monthly income of more than 1,000 gold coins need to apply to the capital trade union. Lucas asks him with interest what the monthly income of Mr. Cedric's company is at the moment. Cedric decides to lie and says that they earn a little over 10,000 gold coins a month, and that he has long wanted to join the union, but was unable to. Lucas immediately points out that Cedric's company's current income is much higher than what is stated in the rules. Cedric realizes he has to pay taxes and states that he has prepared the money in advance, ready to withdraw it at any time. One of the assistants approaches Lucas and whispers something in his ear, but Cedric cannot hear it. Lucas, with a sly smile on his face, asks Cedric if it is true that he is the son of a trader from the village. Cedric wonders how they were able to sniff out facts about his past and village life. Lucas says that Cedric's family history is quite dark, but he still managed to make his way in this life. Smiling, he states that they cannot ignore something like this and must increase the tax rate for businessmen with such a background. Cedric, smiling, says that he understands all these factors and cannot do anything about the current situation. After this, he opens his safe and takes out 2 bags filled with gold coins. He says that he plans to use all these gold coins to pay the tax and hopes that there will be enough of them. Lucas immediately turns to his assistant and orders him to quickly count everything to ensure its authenticity. Cedric also takes out another bag of coins, saying that it is especially intended for Mr. Lucas. Smiling, he says that this is his first experience in running a business, so he is not particularly familiar with the rules of this game. Lucas accepts the bribe, saying that he doesn't want to put a spoke in the wheel and ruin the business of such a newcomer. After this, he declares that all issues have been settled, so he can calmly go about his business. Cedric stops him and asks about joining the trade union, and Lucas is surprised by his desire to join. Cedric states that this is what he always wanted, realizing that only in this way will his company be able to expand. Otherwise, these people will continue to come to him each time, demanding more and more money. Lucas says that he is the one in charge of accepting people into the trade union, but his words don't mean much. He also states that usually the members of the trade union are aristocrats, and Cedric is just a poor man with no backstory. Cedric wonders if it's possible to get into this union with his data, and Lucas states that it's highly unlikely. After this, he calmly leaves, saying that they have successfully completed their tasks here, and there is nothing more for them to do here. Louise cautiously enters the office, and finds that Cedric is clearly not in a good mood after this meeting. He understands that the aristocrats in this world do not take anyone seriously, and people like him will have to force their way through. Even though the businessmen of this world try their best and try to make money, they can simply be killed. He realizes that he will have to find a way to fix this, and Louise decides to talk to him about what just happened. She talks about how a long time ago the store owner fired her and threw her out into the street, and despite this, he still took her in. She also states that they tried their best to repay him and now they feel much better. She expresses confidence that if difficult times come again, they will be able to solve all these problems and become even better. Cedric thanks her, saying that even if they don't join the trade union, they can find ways around it. Smiling, he declares that one day he will become richer than all these aristocrats, and they will not dare to look down on him. Suddenly his friend runs up to him and says that they have big problems. He says that most of the ostriches went berserk while transporting goods, and several of their couriers suffered fractures. Cedric asks him if this is truly true, but there is no doubt about the integrity of this employee. They immediately get to the scene and find a bunch of injured people complaining of severe pain. Cedric asks them what happened, and the courier replies that the ostriches suddenly stopped obeying. Looking up, he suddenly discovers that everyone is suddenly starting to show an unhealthy interest in each other. He immediately calms his mount, saying that now is not the time for such fun. Louise says that it is spring now, which is the time when ostriches need to breed, so they can be unruly. She adds that at the first sight of a female during this period, male ostriches become out of control and are difficult to manage. Cedric addresses his ostrich, saying that he has never had a girlfriend, so he has no right to demand one. After this, he ties them to a pole, saying that the first thing to do is to take care of passers-by. They both begin to help passers-by and employees who were injured in this incident. Cedric discovers that among the victims there is a rather old man and asks him if he is okay. Cedric turns to the healthiest courier and asks him to call a good doctor here. Immediately after this, he turns to his friend and says that the doctor will soon be here and will cure his sore leg. The old man says that even if his leg is cured, he will no longer be able to ride an ostrich. It will be difficult for him to walk. Cedric states that if this happens, he will take full responsibility for compensation for the damage. He understands that the breeding season has begun, which means that the other male ostriches will also go crazy. Louise says that the passers-by were not injured in any way and simply escaped with a slight fright. Cedric asks her to first catch all the ostriches in the company in order to buy time and give him the opportunity to give the others instructions. Louise says that she will carry out his order, after which she begins to chase other animals. Cedric, in turn, returns to the office and says that instructions need to be passed on to the departments so that they temporarily suspend work. He is asked why he is putting his business on hold, worried that something serious might happen. Cedric says that spring is the breeding season for ostriches, so they must control all the males. His faithful comrade turns to his colleagues and tells them to do everything as the boss said. Cedric smiles and exhales tensely, realizing that he was able to do at least something to help his comrades. Suddenly, a team of Capitol guards appears in the corridor and orders no one to move and not to interfere with justice. They get to Cedric pretty quickly and ask him if he is the owner of this transport corporation. Cedric says that this is how it is, and they arrest him, saying that he is accused of disturbing the peace. After some time, he is placed in a cell and encouraged to enjoy these luxurious apartments to the fullest. Cedric reflects on the fact that he must find a way to justify himself. The next day, he decides to write a letter to appeal to the government and ask for support. He turns to the guard, saying that he has finished writing and asks for help in sending the letter. However, to his surprise, the door is opened by the chief of this guard, who came here with a warrant for his arrest. He asks him why he should throw letters around in the hope that it will at least somehow help him. After this, he tells him that in the eyes of the big shots, he no longer has any value, and they will not come to him. Cedric doesn't believe in such a coincidence, and decides to give him a notice from the government. He is informed that 100,000 gold coins must be removed from his estate to cover the damage. He is also told that all his remaining property will be confiscated because it was acquired with illegal proceeds. Cedric begins to protest, claiming that he earned all his money through blood and sweat, and they have no right to confiscate it. The captain of the guards orders him to remain silent, saying that he will be summoned to court for the final conviction and sentencing. Cedric asks why the government did this, since they could confiscate his property without his presence. The guard explains that justice has been established in the capital, which requires a direct trial. After this, he states that they have no time for empty talk, and that they need to take Cedric to the courtroom right now. He is led through the streets, and passers-by speculate that, judging by everything, his business will soon cease operations. Very soon he finds himself in a courtroom, where there are tribunes and a large number of ordinary people. Among them are his comrades, who watch what is happening with surprise, not believing what is happening. Cedric asks them what they are doing here, and they reply that they have come to ask for a reduction in his sentence. The judge loudly bangs his gavel, demanding complete silence and the arrival of the defendant. He then claims that Cedric created the company without government permission and failed to pay his taxes on time. Cedric says that he ignored the ostrich's breeding season and is responsible for what happened. He is interrupted with threatening words, warning that he does not dare to argue with the judge's words or speak without permission. He then brings forward accusations that Cedric is suspected of illegal business dealings and disorderly conduct. The judge states that he has always maintained that poor people are the descendants of traitors and must be disposed of as quickly as possible. After this, he announces the verdict, according to which Cedric is sentenced to death within the next 24 hours. This decision leaves everyone speechless and numb from the incredible horror and cruelty of the judicial system. The jury begins to protest, declaring that the usual punishment should not be so severe. The judge bangs on the table, saying that no one dares question the government's verdict in a disrespectful manner. Cedric's subordinates begin to shout, claiming that this is unfair and try to start a riot. They even attack the guards, saying that they never wanted to do anything like that. Cedric turns to his comrade, saying that he started the company. It belongs to him, and therefore the responsibility is entirely his. His comrade replies that they allowed him to work for him, thereby giving him hope and the desire to live on. The guard, meanwhile, throws him back with a powerful blow from his armored leg, ordering him to retreat. Immediately after this, several guards try to drag Cedric as far as possible into the detention cell. Cedric still cares for his subordinates, telling them to forget about him and try to find new jobs. The doors are gradually closing, and Cedric realizes that he urgently needs to figure out a way to get out of here. Once in the cell, he realizes that luck has quickly turned against him at the most decisive moment of his life. After some time, he notices how the doors of the corridors open and a large number of people head towards him. His subordinates come to visit him again, and he asks them how they got there. Louise says they can't change the verdict and use their connections to see him one last time. After this, she hands him a box of food, informing him that she has prepared his favorite treats for him. She also apologizes to him for the fact that they were unable to do absolutely anything and therefore cannot be considered his friends. Cedric tells them not to be upset, because you can't always control your destiny. He explains that in his original world, he would not have been sentenced to such a cruel punishment instantly. Louise assumes that their boss has started to go crazy and talk complete nonsense, and continues to cry from sympathy. The guard comes in and says that the meeting time is over, so they should go and leave him. Louise apologizes to her boss and says goodbye to him one last time, after which she waves her hand at him. Finally, his deputy also says that he hopes to see him again, but Cedric doesn't have much hope on this score. Left completely alone, he sits down on the cold floor and begins to rummage through his pockets. Taking out a ring from there, he says that he will soon die, but still does not regret anything, since he was able to find friends here. Hearing these sincere words of the unfortunate man, the ring begins to glow strangely, as if waking up from sleep. Meanwhile, his subordinates are out on the streets, their morale at its lowest point in their lives. The protagonist's deputy says it's time to return, but his colleagues can't understand what he's talking about. He decides not to go into details and simply silently walks away in an unknown direction. He reflects on the fact that today his life has hit rock bottom again, and now he doesn't know what to do. He understands that his boss, who gave him new clothes and the desire to live on, committed a crime and will now be killed. He also recalls that he clearly declared to himself that he would always be faithful to his master and would even be ready to die for him. But the judge did not allow this. After this, he remembers that he was once a beggar and lived on the street, and that is why everyone laughed at him and made fun of him. However, it was boss Cedric who gave him hope and pulled him out of the abyss, giving him a strong desire to live and work. After a while, he sees a sign for a local pub and decides to go inside to drown his pain in alcohol. He immediately orders 3 bottles of vodka from the bartender to sink into oblivion. Several of his neighbors begin to whisper and say that the owner of Cedric's company will be executed tomorrow evening. The pharmacy owner says he heard about it and was one of the first partners Cedric started working with. The visitors express regret for Cedric's fate, as he was a good business partner. However, after some time, the loud laughter of an arrogant man is heard throughout the room. The same student who just graduated from the Magic College says that it was clear from the very beginning that everything would be like this. He adds with a chuckle that this week the chairman of the trade union invited him to train as a bodyguard. He also notes that fortunately, Cedric will be much less lucky, so tomorrow his head will be cut off. Another provocateur claims that everyone Cedric hired was a worthless scumbag, and that their lives are now doomed. Every such insulting word addressed to Cedric and his subordinates wounds him to the very heart. He realizes that he can't stand it anymore and loudly slams his fist on the table, after which he takes his bottle. Without saying a word, he gets up from the table and heads towards those scoundrels. Coming closer to them, he pours alcohol on them, causing their clothes to immediately become much less valuable. They ask him what he is doing, to which he replies that he just wanted to splash them for no reason. A student at a magic college says he can use fireball skills, so he's not to be trifled with. The uncle immediately expresses hope that someone will carry out their threats and not limit themselves to empty chatter. He also reminds him that using magic to injure or kill a city resident is illegal. Uncle declares that today he is in a bad mood, he doesn't care about his life, and he is ready to sacrifice it. Both decide to be cowardly and run away, saying that they will file a denunciation against him and contact the appropriate authorities. Uncle takes to the bottle again, realizing that they won't leave him alone, and now he too faces prison. However, he decides not to wait for his fate, and to go there himself to free the prisoners. He recalls that he was always a loser, being timid, running away from problems and lacking purpose and motivation. He knows that he was on good terms with Cedric, and he understands that his life may be worth nothing compared to Cedric's. However, if he had not tried to return to prison to save his boss's life, he would have lived in fear and shame for the rest of his life. At the door of the dungeon, he loudly declares that he has come here to capture the prison and free the prisoners. The guards watching him nearly choked on their usual lunch, but clearly did not see him as a threat. Of course, about 10 seconds into the prison takeover, he is arrested and thrown into a cage. Cedric looks in surprise at his comrade, who clearly has not achieved success and is now also doomed. Cedric asks him what he is doing here, and his uncle replies that he came here to save him alone. The protagonist is very touched by such words and expresses gratitude for the attempt. Uncle modestly says that there is nothing to thank him for, since he couldn't even save him. But now at least he can die with him, showing that he is not a coward. He is in great pain from his bruises and decides to take some rest to recover before his death. Cedric reflects on the fact that not only did he end up in prison, but his faithful companion also found himself in a difficult situation. He understands that with the current state of affairs, he is in a hopeless situation, and it is useless for him to do anything. However, just when hope completely leaves him, a mysterious butterfly suddenly appears out of nowhere. In the air, this butterfly begins to transform and acquires human features. Cedric continues to sleep peacefully, ignoring the appearance of the very princess who was sleeping in the sarcophagus. Looking at the main character, she says that she has been watching him for several months, and he managed to interest her. She comes to the conclusion that she is not at all like other people, and her necromantic magic does not work on him. She assumes that he has incredible knowledge, so she decides to help him escape from the deadly trap. Coming closer to the bars, she turns into a butterfly in order to quietly leave this eerie place. Meanwhile, we are transported to a large residence, where aristocrats are celebrating their victory over a small businessman. Lucas decides to visit his friend and says that he wants to at least express his respect and reverence to him. In his view, everything Mr. Gates does for the trade union is a meaningful endeavor that helps them exist. Gates asks what exactly he means, and Lucas thanks him again for getting rid of Cedric. Gates argues that Cedric was indeed a dangerous target because he could rapidly grow and replace their success. Smiling, he explains that he had intended to capture him from the very beginning, and then a fantastic opportunity arose to get away with as little bloodshed as possible. Gates explains that the trade union defends the interests of the aristocrats in order to obtain as much benefit for them as possible. Lucas feels incredibly threatened by this man, and understands that it is better to constantly flatter him. However, their plans soon fall apart completely, as the butterfly has reached the right place. Suddenly, she decides to return to her human form to take a good look around. Enjoying the cool air, she says that she hasn't been out for a long time and misses these places. A few moments later, she jumps down, appearing before the guards in her beautiful and eerie splendor. One of the guards looks at her in surprise and says that a necromancer has burst in. The butterfly princess looks at him slyly and notes that she is not used to leaving witnesses. With these words, she puts her hands forward, from which a large number of butterflies fly out. Having destroyed the guards, she moves forward, but another guard appears on her path, this time of a different type. A mysterious mage dressed in a robe declares that he will not allow anyone to enter his master's territory. However, the princess points out that his magic is just child's play and not worth her time. She puts up special shields made of butterflies that dispel the magic of an experienced wizard. Following this, the princess decides to attack the insects that destroy everything in their path. Guards who do not possess magical abilities have even less chance of surviving a fight with such an enemy. The princess leaves behind only charred skeletons and moves inexorably towards the office where Lucas and Gates are sitting. Once she succeeds, she uses the butterflies to close the doors and scare the two aristocrats along with their maids. The figure of the butterfly princess looks very threatening, as she clearly did not come here in the best mood. Gates realizes it's best not to be insolent now, and asks who she is and what she wants. The butterfly princess says that she has come here to have Cedric released from prison immediately. Gates replies that he doesn't know anyone with that name and doesn't even understand what he can do in this situation. The princess's look hints that now is not the time for jokes, and he will not be able to deceive her. Even more nervously, he reports that he remembered that same young business genius who settled in the capital. He also notes that the government sentenced him to death and he is very sorry, but his options are limited. The princess immediately summons one butterfly, which is enough to take the old man's miserable life. Gates promises that he will definitely help out this unfortunate guy and leave bail to buy him out of prison. Having dealt with the main problem, the princess turns her gaze to the corrupt tax commissioner. She asks him if he has anything to add regarding what just happened. Lucas replies that he can't say anything and just came here to eat. The butterfly princess turns around and announces that they must post bail and release Cedric from jail tomorrow morning. Gates looks at her with fear and says that he understands everything perfectly. The butterfly princess leaves and transforms back into her insect form to return to the prison unnoticed. The next morning, the guards inform the protagonist that he must move faster and stop messing around there. Cedric also notices something eerie, as he guesses that his comrades are going to be executed along with him. He asks the guards what they are doing, adding that the man is innocent. The guard claims that the man was an employee and therefore an accomplice who was planning to take over the prison. Cedric is against forgiving the uncles who worked for him, noting that because of him he brought even more grief upon himself. Uncle says that he doesn't regret anything, because he was happy to work for the main character and help him. They are forbidden to talk to each other and quickly move forward, informing them that another photo is already waiting for them. However, at the last moment, another nobleman appears before them, who informs them that the execution will have to be postponed. He wonders who gave the nobleman the authority to interfere with the execution of punishments. After some time, Gates approaches them and says that all this was done on his orders. The guards immediately take a few steps back, realizing that it is better not to argue with such a person and to comply with his demands. Gates explains that these two men cannot be detained every day, and that he has come here today to release them on bail. His servant hands the guards a government-approved document, stating that everything has been agreed upon at the highest level. Gates orders the two to be picked up and taken home, noting that they will be staying with him for a short time before awaiting further instructions. Cedric asks the president of the trade union why he is doing all this, and does not understand why they were suddenly given help. Gates gives an evasive answer, explaining that he cannot go into details and does not particularly wish to talk to him. As he turns the corner, Cedric remains in a gloomy mood and realizes that he is now in very serious and unpleasant circumstances. Lucas decides to ask him a couple of questions to clear up some things for himself. He asks who was the girl they met last night who looked quite menacing. Gates explains that she is a necromantic princess of the Dark Kingdom, who specializes in butterfly magic. Cedric heads to the palace to meet old acquaintances. The girl asks him what he wishes, and he expresses his intention to meet the girl who served him. He is asked who they are talking about, and he tries to give the most detailed description of the girl's appearance. A few moments later, someone gently taps him on the back of the head to get his attention. He meets his old friend, who asks if he really came here to look for her. She also says that he should remember him by the name Julia, so as not to get into similar situations in the future. They walk into the room, and she decides to pour him some alcohol, reminding him that he has been having problems lately. Cedric confirms all these rumors, which causes her great concern, since he was literally walking on the edge of a knife. Julia expresses her sympathy and says that his employees are doing well and in good health. Cedric explains that the government claimed he had broken the law and wanted to arrest him and almost execute him. He also reports that someone posted bail for them, so they were released, but the company's income was completely confiscated. Smiling, he says that he only has 3,000 gold coins left, which he spent on his employees and then came here. Julia asks if he came here to relax and sleep, but Cedric says that is not the case. Looking at Julia, he explains that he came to find out something very important. Julia asks what information exactly he is interested in, noting that she knows quite a lot. Cedric explains that he would like to know about all the dreams of the guests she hosted in order to find a business opportunity. Julia sincerely admits that she did not expect him to come with such a strange and sensitive request. She also says that clients' dreams are personal information, and storing it is part of their job. However, she decides to help him, noting that they have a good relationship and she can tell him a little. Julia says that most of the time, when guests come here, they provide information that is not that valuable. Cedric notes with a goofy smile that this really doesn't give him anything. Julia reports that most people see their relatives or friends in their dreams, as well as wealth. Suddenly she remembers an important detail. Most of the guests are mercenaries who always dream of adventure. Julia adds that the life of mercenaries is always accompanied by danger, so they come here to relax. Cedric carefully analyzes the information he just received and makes some conclusions. He confidently states that he now probably knows what to do next and how to run a new business. Rising from his bed, he thanks Julia for her help and expresses his desire to join the mercenary union. Julia immediately stops him, informing him that this is not how business is done in this establishment. She sternly asks if he is really going to leave without ordering anything. Cedric cautiously suggests that this is not entirely true, since he ordered the wine as a favor. Julia says that this will not be enough, and hints that otherwise he will be caught and beaten by the guards. She sadly notes that she kindly provided him with important information, and he doesn't even intend to rest here. Cedric explains shyly that in that case he would like to try ordering just once. Julia immediately becomes more positive and reports that he gave the correct answer. After this, she gives him a piece of paper and a pen so that he can clearly formulate his desire. Cedric has difficulty describing exactly what kind of dream he wants, because he has so many ideas. Initially, he imagines himself in a hot bath next to two beauties. He wonders if this is really the dream he wants to have right now, or if he should come up with something better. He quickly comes to the conclusion that if he chooses this dream, he will be no different from other people. He also begins to wonder about how things are going with his relatives who remain in the real world. He becomes curious about how things are going at his former company, and decides to take a look at them. After this, he quickly describes his desires and hands the piece of paper to his interlocutor. Julia reads what he has written carefully and asks him about the meaning of the words car, telephone, and public opinion. Cedric tries to explain to her what cars and phones are, realizing that there are not many analogs in this world. Eventually, he realizes that he can't just tell her that he is a traveler between worlds. Julia continues to study what she has written and says that she has understood almost everything, despite some difficulties. After this, she points him to a soft bed and recommends that he go to bed to begin the dream. Cedric obediently lies down on the bed, and Julia decides to use her spell to induce a dream. Cedric dreams that he is at a board of directors meeting at his company from the world he was in just recently. He says the contract for the platform's construction should be signed as soon as possible to impact revenues. He is informed that there is a lot of negative news about their products on the internet, but he decides not to pay attention to it. He also notes that a group of top developers have already begun studying the competitor's new product. After some time, he receives a signal from his mother and understands that he needs to respond immediately. He states that he has scheduled the meeting for this evening so that he can return home early, and then sends them on their way. Suddenly he notices something glowing on his finger, and remembers the ring he had been wearing for a long time. Looking at the ring, he realizes that his body is in another world, and everything that is happening is just a dream. Upon hearing this, the ring emits a bright flash, which temporarily blinds the protagonist. This also wakes him up from his sleep, and he wakes up in horror, screaming loudly, frightening Julia. She apologizes to him, explaining that his awakening was early due to her unfortunate influence. Cedric says that he has nothing to worry about here, since he woke up of his own free will. After this, he looks down at his hand again and discovers that the ring is still in place. He quickly says goodbye to his interlocutor, noting that he still has a lot of things to do. Julia says she looks forward to his next meeting, and Cedric confirms that it will take place. He has a strange feeling that he is completely safe as long as the ring is on his finger. He assumes that all this happened because of the awakening of that girl, after which he decides to go into the gateway. After this, he makes sure that no one is watching him and begins to talk to the ring as if someone is there. At first, no one answers him, and he assumes that the girl in the ring is still sleeping. However, after a few moments, a bright flash of light begins to shoot out from the ring, which frightens him. The butterfly princess immediately appears before him and asks why he thought she had been sleeping all this time. Cedric feels incredibly insignificant in comparison to such a being with such amazing power. Cedric happily points at her, explaining that this is the same girl who was sleeping in the sarcophagus when he found her. The butterfly princess advises him not to point at other people, as it is impolite. Cedric immediately apologizes to her and tries to scare away the butterflies that are heading his way. The butterflies calm down, and he decides to examine his companion and try to find a way to get her to talk. The butterfly princess reveals that she is the necromantic princess of the Black Kingdom. Cedric states that he is a commoner and apologizes for the disrespect shown. The butterfly princess tells him that he doesn't need to introduce himself, as she knows everything, even things he doesn't know about himself. She also recommends calling her as a butterfly next time to avoid serious problems. She declares that he must keep the ring at any cost, even if his life depends on it. She adds that the ring is one of a kind and much more valuable than silver and gold coins. Cedric asks if this means she is constantly tracking him with the ring. The butterfly princess explains with a smile that she woke up early and watched him for 6 months. Afterwards, she says that she spoke to the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce and convinced him to save his life. Cedric understands who he owes for saving her, bows before her and says that he will never forget it. After this, he asks if she will continue to look after him in the future. The butterfly princess says that she hasn't been interested in anything lately, so she decided to keep things as they are. Cedric turns his mouth into a smile and understands that this means the black butterfly will continue to help him. He smiles, noting that with a strong ally on his side, he will definitely be able to get his entire fortune back. The butterfly princess advises him not to get his hopes up, explaining that she only helped him once. Cedric states that he knows little about the butterfly's abilities and asks her to side with him. After this, he grins and says that he still won't ask for her help, since she has already forbidden him to do so. The butterfly princess advises him not to put on this show, as she knows that he came here from another world. She also reports that he is far from the only person who ended up here in this way. Cedric asks who else is there, but she is told that he cannot meet with that person. The butterfly princess claims that this man came here long before him and became one of the great people at the top of this world. Cedric understands that right now he must return to the starting point from which he began life in this world. Determination fills him again, and he declares that he will devote much attention to his improvement in order to become stronger. Cedric promises to try to rise much higher than before in order to have the opportunity to meet this man. The butterfly princess grins and says that he is as interesting as the man she works with. The butterfly princess notices the confidence in his eyes and assumes that he has already thought about his next move. Cedric claims that he can use the high risk of running a business to his advantage and create an insurance company. The butterfly princess looks at him in surprise, clearly not understanding what kind of company this is and what services it can provide. She asks him to explain what it is so she can understand what he is about to do. Cedric explains that insurance is a protection mechanism that helps people preserve their property or life. He presents a plan to create an insurance sector and attract many clients to it. The butterfly princess shows little interest in the boring and technical explanations and immediately begins to yawn. She wishes him a speedy restoration of his reputation and fortune, noting that she is very tired and needs rest. Ignoring the protagonist's pleas to stay with him a little longer, she returns to the ring again. Cedric is offended that he didn't have time to ask all the questions, while she simply addressed him in the form of a butterfly. After this, he states that she is quite irresponsible, and that he will not rely on her so much in the future. In any case, first he needs to deal with the current problems that still haven't gone away. Entering the mercenary guild, he finds that there are many people there willing to try their luck. Cedric understands that they fight often, and their lives are at risk every day, making them ideal clients. A girl approaches him, asking if he is looking for a suitable quest, but he replies that he is not a mercenary. The girl explains that he can go through the necessary procedures to obtain mercenary status if he wants. She also explains that mercenary missions are divided into 5 classes, from D to S, depending on difficulty and reward. According to the theory, if a person wants to be a mercenary, he must make every effort to become stronger. Cedric realizes that it's partly like a game. In order to better organize his life, he needs to complete difficult missions. He also understands that he must experience all the missions firsthand to truly understand how dangerous they are. He comes up with the idea of joining forces with other mercenaries and taking on low-ranking missions. Suddenly he hears a familiar voice calling him by name. They meet the Magic College student again, who says he didn't expect to see him here. Cedric recognizes his interlocutor, who grins, surprised that he could remember him. He asks why Cedric came here, assuming that he wants to join the ranks of mercenaries. Cedric makes eye contact with Leah, whom he hasn't seen since fleeing his village. Cedric points his finger at her and says that this is the same beautiful mercenary he encountered earlier. Leah is no less surprised, since she did not expect to see the poor boy from the village here. Leah notes that his calling her beautiful won't change their relationship, and then reveals her name. The student of the Magic College looks at them in surprise, not believing that a person like Leah could know Cedric. Leah says that she met him in her native village 6 months ago, and that was when they first met. Cedric smiles and says that he recently started a company here that has become quite successful and is on the rise. The Magic College student smiles and notes that he heard the news that Cedric's company was closed. Leah turns to the protagonist in surprise and asks if this is all true. Cedric cannot refute her words, claiming that failure really did overtake him at the most inopportune moment. The magician explains that if an ordinary commoner in the village tries to stand out in the capital, they will try to get rid of him. Leah turns to the magician and asks what his name is, since they have been communicating for so long and so well. The young man introduces himself as Siegfried, specifying that he is a mid-ranking wizard who has recently completed his training. Leah notes that a mid-ranking wizard would be quite in demand, but for some reason he decided to become a mercenary. Siegfried explains that he originally planned to become the president's magical bodyguard. However, his plan was thwarted by a terrible tragedy when almost all the guards in the president's house were killed, and he took this as a warning. Leah shows a keen interest in the situation and asks what happened after that. Siegfried reveals that instead of becoming a magical bodyguard, he decided to come here and become a mercenary. Smiling proudly, he adds that he is now a B-rank mercenary, which is quite a result. Leah immediately notes that the A-rank mercenary surpasses him in absolutely every way. Siegfried turns around and says that his teammates should have already chosen a quest, so he needs to go. Leah turns to Cedric and asks why the businessman ended up among the mercenaries, since this is not his profile. Cedric explains that he is here to conduct research to start a new business. He explains his rationale for his actions by saying that his business idea is related to the lives of mercenaries, so he must learn about their risks. Approaching the manager, he greets him and says that he would like to register as an ordinary mercenary. They hand him a contract, explaining that once he signs his name, he will become a low-class mercenary. Leah says she didn't expect such courage from him, and Cedric notes that he is ready to do a lot for success. Leah warns him that the life of a mercenary is full of dangers, and it is better to be confident in his abilities. Cedric explains that he is only a low-ranking mercenary, so such missions will not be too dangerous. After that, he carefully studies the notice board, trying to figure out which quest he needs to choose. Leah joins him, noting that she hasn't had anything to do lately, so she'll be happy to help him. She also advises him not to rejoice prematurely, as she will demand a large percentage of the reward. Cedric agrees to these conditions, after which she immediately chooses a quest of a fairly high level. Cedric studies the terms, and realizes that all they have to do is fight the magical pigs. Leah says Cedric doesn't look very presentable, and he'll need some good equipment. She adds that the mission is not too difficult, so she can handle it herself, but he should buy some equipment. They head to the gun shop and purchase leather armor that is perfect for a beginner. Leah reminds us that we should always pay close attention to our weapons so that they don't fail us in battle. Cedric notes that he has never had a weapon or experience with anything like it, so he doesn't know what to choose. Leah looks at him more sternly and wonders where his confidence has gone. After thinking a little, she comes to a good decision that can help in the future. She states that a beginner who has neither talent nor time for practice can try to learn magic. Opening the box, she explains that simple spells can be used even by a beginner. Cedric realizes that magic here works on the same principle as grenades, bombs, and smoke bombs. Leah points to another crystal and explains that high-ranking magic stones can summon magical beasts. Cedric is skeptical about the idea, as he is clearly not a suitable candidate for animal training. Leah also says that if he doesn't like magic, he can try the magic mechanism. She explains that inlaying a magical stone onto a special mechanism allows the creation of specialized weapons. Cedric remarks that this is pretty cool and asks what the artifact is worth. Leah smiles and says that it will cost a little more, and the cheapest one will cost 1,000 gold. These prices seem too expensive for Cedric, as he has not yet recovered his financial situation. Smiling, he says that he only came here once to visit the mercenary school, so he won't need it. Having limited himself to buying magic stones, he becomes inspired by the idea of creating a set of magical equipment. Leah asks him what happened, hinting that he got too carried away while walking down the street. She advises him to be more serious, saying that they are going on a mercenary mission right now. Cedric realizes the jokes are over and declares that he will remain as focused as possible. However, this is his first time fighting alongside someone, and he is a little nervous about it. Suddenly he hears two familiar voices calling out to him and feels true joy in them. Turning around, he sees that his comrade and Louise are following him, and they could not help but recognize him in the crowd. He is surprised to meet them, saying that he did not expect to see them here, and asks how they are doing. The uncle immediately rushes forward to hug him and express incredible gratitude for helping him out. Cedric asks him not to cry, adding that he will be completely fine, so there is no need to worry. Uncle explains that on the day they left the prison, they never saw each other, so he was worried about him. Louise wipes tears from her eyes, saying that she was sure she would never see him again. Cedric advises her not to worry, as he is not so easy to get rid of, as he has powerful allies. Leah looks at his friend with interest and asks who they are and what they are doing here. Cedric explains that these are the key employees of his previous company, who served him faithfully. He also asks his uncle what happened to his company after his arrest. Uncle and Louise reply that they have paid compensation to all the dismissed employees, and now they have no funds. Cedric says there is nothing to worry about as they were simply victims of a scam. Smiling, he adds that this is not a reason to lose heart, and they will be able to regain their greatness. The staff asks if he has any plans for the next step, to open a new business. Cedric happily announces that he is going to open an insurance company that will bring in even more money. Uncle says he has no idea what insurance is, but he believes in Cedric's incredible ingenuity. Louise wonders who this woman is who is next to him. Cedric explains that this is Leah, and she is one of the best mercenaries he has ever seen. He also says that he is going to try the life of a mercenary to better manage his business, and his friends say that they will go with him. Cedric warns them that mercenary missions are very dangerous, and that ordinary people have no business there. However, to his surprise, they both claim that they have already registered as mercenaries and received accreditation. Cedric asks how this happened, after which they explain that they entered there because they didn't know where to go. Leah welcomes them into her ranks, saying that it will be much easier for them to cope if they do so. Thus they find themselves in a dark forest that is fraught with many dangers. They move carefully between the bushes, hoping not to scare off their target, because magical pigs are dangerous opponents. Louise says she hasn't fought as a mercenary in a long time, and doesn't know if she can cast the spell. Leah orders them to be quieter, as they are almost there and need to be careful. Peeking out from behind the bushes, she warns all her comrades that the target is finally right in front of them. The magical pigs turn out to be much more numerous than they initially expected, and they look very menacing. Cedric, however, remains confident that they can cope by joining forces. Leah agrees with him and recommends not to be afraid, but simply follow her carefully thought-out plan. After this, she takes out her sword and begins to carefully sneak up on the unsuspecting magical pigs. However, when there are only a couple of centimeters left to the target, she steps on a dry and loud branch. The pigs wake up and start grunting loudly, and Leah tries to call for help before it's too late. The protagonist emerges from the bushes and throws a small magic crystal at the feet of the giant pigs. After a few moments, the crystal explodes in a bright flash, leaving all enemies disoriented. Leah manages to close her eyes, so she is not harmed and has a small window to strike. First, she chooses the strongest boar and delivers a fatal blow directly to the body. The pig falls dead, but the others become even more angry. Their eyes begin to glow red, indicating a state of maximum rage. Cedric and his comrades rush to help, simultaneously throwing another grenade towards the enemy. The grenade was loaded with fire magic, so care must be taken with it. Uncle takes a defensive position and orders everyone to leave, as otherwise they will achieve nothing. Leah continues to fight magical pigs that shoot spikes from their backs. However, her reaction speed is top-notch, and she cuts through flying fangs with ease. The pig decides to take advantage of the window of opportunity and lunges forward to strike with its tusks. Luckily, Leah manages to dodge in time and simultaneously cut the giant boar's belly with her sword. The blow proves fatal, but Leah feels that everything has gone wrong, despite the low level of the task. The pigs also attack Louise and her comrade, hoping to break through their strong defense with their fangs. Uncle understands that the situation is rapidly escalating, and he is unlikely to be able to cope with this high-level boar. Leah comes to the rescue in time and delivers a swift and deadly blow straight to the creature's side. Louise and her uncle immediately realize that they made a very wise decision to team up with this experienced mercenary. Leah deals with the last of the monsters and says that they have finally completed their mission. Cedric notes that she is excellent and almost single-handedly dealt with 3 magical pigs. Leah says that this was possible thanks to the teamwork of each of them and that they are all great. Louise adds that if they were as strong as she was, they wouldn't even know the meaning of the word danger. Leah frowns and says that she has never actually encountered anything truly dangerous. After this, she turns to the main character and tells him that when she was leaving the village, she came across something terrible. Cedric assumes that this is about the return of the butterfly that destroyed an entire squad that was near it. Cedric asks if something happened back when they didn't know each other. Leah states that on the day she met him in the village, they were simultaneously completing another task. According to this assignment, they received an order from a mysterious person to deliver a group to another country. She shares her guess that the coffin was secretly smuggled out of the black side, but they took on the mission without asking any extra questions. The client also warned that this type of activity could cause obstacles in the delivery route. Leah was in charge of patrolling and spent most of her time observing what was going on. At a certain point, she noticed something very strange, but it was too late to intervene. The whole point is that an accident occurred, caused by people's insatiable thirst to satisfy their curiosity. She suggests that the captain was too intrigued by the idea of someone hunting in the coffin and tried to open it. That is why they made a mistake that they should never have made and brought a curse upon themselves. Leah only managed to see a bright purple flash and heard the loud screams of her fellow soldiers who were unable to escape. She decided to find out what happened there, and what she saw left her in deep shock and horror, which she still remembers. All that was left of the mercenaries from the transport team were just bones. No one was left alive. At first she decided to approach the coffin, but fear got the better of her and she simply ran away. After this, she explained the situation to the client, and the people he sent discovered that the coffin was already empty. Leah says the client simply sighed and left, not even thinking about punishment, apparently deciding to spare her. Cedric understands that this is definitely about the return of the butterfly, and now he has a direct connection to this terrible story. Leah slaps herself across the cheeks to force herself not to think about these events anymore, because she can't influence them in any way. She turns to the protagonist and asks if he has any new ideas for his business. Cedric smiles and says that starting an insurance company is really worth investing in. Leah explains that the life of a mercenary is full of dangers, and if he is going to open a company, she will support him. Smiling, she declares that she will now go about her business and promises that they can enlist her support. Her silhouette gradually disappears into the dense foliage, but the heroes continue to watch her for a long time. Uncle says that she is a very strong woman who can be relied upon, and Louise cannot help but agree. Cedric notes that the mission was successfully completed and thanks them for their support and assistance. Uncle declares that he will only be glad if they can help him in any way in his endeavors. Cedric says all that remains now is for them to open an insurance company and sort out the bureaucratic issues. He thanks all his comrades for coming here and agreeing to work with him again. He also aims to teach them the basics of how an insurance company makes money. The theory is that insurance companies make money through a smart payout system, using statistics and customer data collection. His colleagues listen attentively to the theoretical information, but it is difficult to say that they can assimilate it given their current level of education. Cedric, meanwhile, says that they should use the accumulated insurance premiums for their next investments. Uncle asks if they really chose the mercenary mission to collect data. Cedric states that he plans to use the mercenary union as the insurance company's first client. After this, he takes out a plan and explains that within a month he had become close to the manager of the mercenary union and obtained the necessary statistics. Clearing his throat, he says there is nothing pleasant about discussing the deaths and injuries of strangers, but they have no other choice. He also notes that they now know the mortality and disability rates of mercenaries, and can adjust accordingly. As an example, they cite a B-rank mercenary, who on average gets injured 15% of the time and very rarely dies. The death of a mercenary with insurance means that the insurer will receive 100 gold coins, and the disabled one will receive 60. He adds that they will pay 10 coins for each injury, but this is more than covered by the cost of insurance. Uncle asks if they can even make any money at that price. Cedric comes up with a simple formula that will allow them to earn a decent amount of money. He also notes that the more insurance they take out, the more their reputation will grow. Louise approaches him with a reasonable question about how they can attract investment to their side. Cedric says that insurance investments are the company's main source of future profits. He adds that now they should focus on this particular method of earning money, since it is more reliable. He also understands that having multiple programs is impossible, and he needs a group of good employees who can handle it. After this, he appoints his uncle as the HR manager of the insurance company, who must recruit qualified personnel. Uncle says that he will perform his tasks as efficiently as possible in order to achieve the desired results. Cedric says that employees are very important to the company because they must be good at marketing and not shy around people. He promises that he will not treat them badly, but he will have to adjust their pay system. He will give them a low base salary, but every time they successfully apply for insurance, they will receive a bonus. Uncle immediately asks as soon as they start hiring employees and is already preparing to begin the task. Cedric says that as soon as the meeting is over, they can start recruiting. The next day, a huge queue of people wanting to try themselves as agents forms. Some of them wonder what they would actually have to do in this job, and why there are so many people applying for it. People remain confident that the boss of this company is a genius, who will always find a way to prosper. Meanwhile, Cedric and Uncle are busy selecting new staff and conducting interviews. A strange-looking girl, clearly still underage, comes to them and introduces herself as Yumi. Cedric asks her why she wants to become an insurance agent, seriously considering her as an employee. Yumi says she has a lot of experience in this field, as she started working at a very young age. Cedric looks at her with interest and wonders what she did before she came here. Yumi takes out a bottle of milk and says that she was in the dairy business. After this, she begins to advertise the product she is holding in her hands, adding that she is still so young thanks to milk. Cedric is surprised and wonders why this girl suddenly decided to sell them something, but realizes that she has talent. He notes that she has good sales skills, making her suitable for the job. Yumi is very happy and then leaves, and Cedric begins to think that this girl can cause them more trouble. After some time, a man on crutches comes to them and says that he would like to submit an application. When asked what happened to his leg, he replies that he used to be a castle guard, but then an arrow hit him in the knee. Cedric says he won't be comfortable with his leg like that, and won't be able to handle the job of a spotter. After some time, a man who used to work as an artist comes to them, adding that he now wants to become an insurance agent. Cedric asks what he drew, and he replies that he drew many wonderful works, but no one appreciates him. He asks if Cedric can see these works, and deeply regrets his decision. After this, he hands the book back, saying that unfortunately, she will not be able to appreciate his creation. The artist states that he is very disappointed, adding that they are all just pathetic peasants who do not understand anything. Cedric gives him a dismissive look before calling the next candidate for the job. A nice young man comes to them and says that he came here to become an insurance agent. Uncle asks if he has done this kind of work before, impressed by his confidence. The young man says that he used to distribute leaflets and sell various things, so he has some experience. He adds that he learns quickly and is not afraid to talk to strangers, which means he can handle this task. Cedric is impressed by his enthusiasm and says that he is now accepted and encourages him to try hard. At the end of the working day, they receive 3 people, saying that they will conduct lessons and teach them how to obtain insurance. Smiling, she states that in 3 days they will be able to go to the mercenary union to begin drawing up the first insurance documents. After 3 days of training, it's time to show off their abilities, and Cedric knows exactly what they'll excel at. A cunning uncle named John bribes other people with the fact that he is very good at details. He finds his first client and tells him that he offers him insurance for his services. When asked what insurance is, he replies that mercenaries give a little money and receive compensation in case of injury. He also states that in the event of death or disability, his family can receive substantial compensation. The first mercenary says he will think about the offer, noting its attractiveness. Yumi also goes hunting, using her incredible skills as a salesperson. She turns to the senior mercenary and introduces herself by name, which causes him to be slightly surprised. She immediately says that he is like her brother, as he is an incredibly kind person, After this, she hands him a bottle of milk to bribe him with a small gift. She also says that she has something she would like to ask her big brother about. The mercenary asks what she needs, and she suggests that he consider taking out life insurance. The mercenary, not understanding anything, says that he doesn't know what she's talking about and would like to know more about it. Yumi hands him a contract, explaining that if anyone gets hurt in their case, their medical expenses will be covered. The mercenary smiles and says that he always takes on easy tasks, so no one can harm him. Yumi comes closer to him and says that his brother should worry about himself and take care of his life. She also begins to play to the crowd, explaining that she would be very scared to think about him getting hurt. The mercenary notes that his sister's words make sense, and in that case he will buy himself one insurance policy for the future. Yumi hugs him even tighter, declaring that they can become good friends for each other. Cedric asks her not to get carried away, explaining that they are a serious company that does not want problems with the law. After this, he discovers how things are going for his red-haired comrade named Jarvis, and realizes that he is still having a hard time. He approaches various mercenaries and tells them that if they get injured during a mission, they will be able to heal their wounds. However, he constantly gets rejected because people don't want to waste their time on such nonsense. Cedric takes a closer look at Jarvis's productivity and realizes that he really is in big trouble. He also wonders what to do next, as he doesn't want to lose such a proactive employee. Thus, a week passes, and it is time to take stock. Carefully studying the report, he notes that it is now possible to name the results of last week. Yumi is in first place as she took out 53 insurance policies in just 1 week. In second place is John, who was able to issue 27 insurance policies and has already mastered all the sales lessons. Unfortunately, the weakest player here is Jarvis, who was only able to secure 5 insurance claims in a week despite his best efforts. Smiling, he says that overall the weekly plan was fully completed, so he can give them a day off. Separately, he turns to Jarvis and tells him that he would like to talk to him, so he should stay. Jarvis admits he has done a poor job and is preparing to change careers. Cedric tells him not to worry, explaining that he has no intention of kicking him out and will instead try to find out what the problem is. Jarvis breaks down and says that he really enjoys writing insurance, but it feels like a scam. Cedric disagrees with this interpretation and asks why he perceives it this way. Jarvis explains that John takes out insurance and sometimes exaggerates the benefits for marketing purposes. Yumi generally uses semi-forbidden practices, using her body to get closer to mercenaries. However, when Jarvis tries to get insurance, he tells them only the truth and nothing more, but no one wants to listen to him. Clutching his head, he says that he cannot talk to the mercenaries about anything other than the most ordinary benefits. The main problem with our insurance agent is that he is too honest and not suitable for this job. However, Cedric sees it quite differently, and is much more in agreement with this approach. He explains that insurance is not a scam, and that Yumi and John are simply using different promotional methods. According to Cedric, Jarvis simply hasn't yet found a suitable promotion method that will be more comfortable for him. Afterwards, he takes him for a walk, explaining that they found themselves near a mercenary union to expand their business. He notices an ordinary grandmother who is walking along, not suspecting anything. Cedric says he will get her insurance from his company right now, without resorting to prohibited methods. Stepping forward, he explains that he will now show how honest people use the sales method. Coming closer to the old woman, he asks her for a minute of attention, and she looks at him with interest, trying to understand what he wants. Cedric asks if her son is a mercenary soldier who regularly risks his life. The grandmother replies that her son is indeed on a mission now, but this is not some kind of secret. Cedric introduces himself as an insurance agent and asks if she would like to try their product. He states that it costs very little to get an insurance policy, but if something happens, they will pay out the money. The old woman takes this as a curse on her son, saying that he will never find himself in such a situation. After this, she begins to scold him, explaining that she will not spend the money even if her son gets hurt. Cedric says he is not trying to make money off her son's risky career, but rather wishes them well. After this, he again asks her to read the contract more carefully so that she understands what it includes. He adds that the future of a mercenary soldier is associated with a high risk of injury, and this is what worries him. He explains that if her son gets hurt, they will pay out money that she can use to pay for medical expenses. The grandmother looks at him carefully and asks if he had fought as a soldier before. Cedric says he has personally experienced situations similar to those that happen to his clients, and therefore knows exactly what he is talking about. He explains that during combat, a soldier must not be distracted, but it is difficult not to think about what will happen to your family if you die or get injured. Cedric confidently states that with this insurance, they can focus on the battle without worrying about anything. The grandmother cries, saying that her son works so hard to give her a good life, and therefore he deserves better. Cedric hands her the contract, explaining that they can come to their office with any questions. After this, he approaches Jarvis and asks if he has figured out how to properly sell a product to people. Cedric also says that selling the way Yumi does would be quite difficult for most people. He advises him to believe in his product and think from the customer's perspective to achieve the best results. Jarvis listens carefully to all the information and says that now he knows what to do. He also apologizes to his boss, explaining that all this time he thought he was a fraud, and he was wrong. Cedric chuckled and said that having insurance could give a family peace of mind, which is a good thing. Looking back, he realizes that in this world, no one can be sure that everything will always be fine. After this, he remembers that in his past life he died simply because he choked on jelly. The world he finds himself in now is much more dangerous than the previous one, in which many problems were solved. The next day they gather again with their comrades and celebrate that their second business week begins now. In the second week, all three sellers were able to issue significantly more insurance. Jarvis, thanks to his incredible enthusiasm, easily catches up with Yumi in sales. Now that the first part of their plan is complete, it is time to implement the second and most important part of the plan. Insurance sales are going very well, and the company sells several hundred insurance policies per month. Of course, there have been plenty of people making claims of injury, but the profits are still quite substantial. In the first month, after deducting overhead costs, they make a profit of 2,000 coins, which is already a good result. However, for our hero, this is just the beginning, and he plans to become an even larger corporation. He uses the experience of his previous activities and regularly pays taxes of his own free will to the treasury, and also gives small bribes. They start to expand and hire even more people who want to try their hand at sales. They also begin to build relationships with the Feng Lu governing body to gather even more data. Of course, all this was not free, and they provided what others could not even dream of, thanks to their connections. They were able to obtain death and injury data from the city's archives over the past 20 years, a valuable resource. With this data, they proceed to the next part of the plan and switch the mercenary soldiers' focus to ordinary people. According to their plan, a new group of salespeople begins going door to door with these policies and closing deals. Ordinary citizens don't experience the same level of danger as mercenary soldiers, but they still want to have a safety net. The number of employees continues to grow, and the team quickly exceeds several hundred. Uncle still heads the HR department and now has his own office with visible staff. Jarvis and Yumi, being the most effective employees, speak in classes, training new staff. So the company has been running smoothly for 6 months now, and they've been earning 24,000 coins. Although they don't make as much money as Feng Lu, Cedric suggests that their type of income is much better. In an alternate world, running an insurance company is very risky, but as long as they have enough employees, everything will be fine. The inhabitants of this world do not know what insurance is, so it has absolutely no competitors in this area. Also, for some reason he can't explain, the tax authorities are in no hurry to contact him, and he doesn't want to irritate them. So, our hero's next step is to attract even more clients in order to earn as much money as possible. If he uses the money for large-scale investments, it is possible to earn enough to change the world. Suddenly there is a knock on his office door, and Louise enters with a very sad look. Cedric asks what happened, and she hands him a small piece of paper, explaining that it is very important. Looking at the piece of paper, Cedric realizes it is a signed resignation letter, and shock runs through his body. Louise says that unfortunately she has to return to her village to get married. Cedric asks her what this means, but Louise replies that it is an order from her family that cannot be broken. With tears in her eyes, she explains that her village is located in the forest north of this city, and they have lived there for a very long time. She explains that she was born in this village, and even at a young age she was clumsy in absolutely everything she did. So she was constantly bullied, which made her feel like a real outcast. Over time, even adults couldn't stand her and constantly scolded her. So she decided to simply run away from the forest. Louise says that despite constantly making mistakes, she was still able to live independently. She then remembers with joy the moment she met her new boss, and life has been amazing ever since. She states that in the 2 years that she has been working for them, she has made many mistakes, but no one has scolded her. Instead, they have taught her to be better. Cedric says that scolding an employee will not correct the mistakes, but rather will only make the situation worse. Louise says she now sees a future full of hope, but her location was only recently revealed. 3 days ago, a mysterious woman approached her with a voice that seemed very familiar to her. Turning around, she saw her mother, who happily announced that she had finally found her after many years of searching. Mom immediately said that she had reached a dark age and therefore had to return home, Cedric explains that Louise does not want to get married, but her mother claims that she has already found a groom. Cedric says that if she gets married, she won't be able to come back here, but she never wanted to leave here. Her mother begins to insist that these are the rules of their tribe, which must not be broken under any circumstances. Cedric says that such rules should not exist at all, adding that she will not return to this village. The mother threatened that she would not be able to avoid it, and now that they knew where she lived, they would take her away in a couple of days. Cedric says at the end that his mother wouldn't dare do that, but she doesn't answer and remains silent. Louise concludes her story by explaining that the Elven tribe has always had a patriarchal system, and women have no voice. She adds sadly that they are not allowed to marry other tribes or species. She asks her boss what to do in this situation, while he is tensely searching for options. After that, he asks if she is sure that she does not want to go back to her time. Louise says that this is out of the question, as she will definitely ruin her future if she goes back. She firmly declares that with just a little more effort, she will be able to prove her worth, and then the tribe will be able to do nothing to her. Cedric firmly says that in that case he will help her to persuade the tribe to let her go. Louise looks at her boss in surprise and asks if he can really convince them. Cedric says that he is leaving next week on business, so he has handed over all the work to his uncle for now, which means he can go to the village. He also adds that he will take Leah with him, which brings genuine happiness to the elf's face. Cedric understands that through this incident, his employees will know that they can control their future. After some time, they find themselves in the right places and walk carefully so as not to run into traps in the forest. Cedric asks if she knows who her parents have decided to marry her to, and Louise sadly replies that she knows him very well. She talks about an elf named Teg, and adds that he was cruel and constantly bullied everyone around him. He also loved to brag and talk loudly, and everyone except his idiot friends avoided him. Louise says he sings terribly, which is one of the important qualities for any elf. Cedric can't understand why Louise's parents suddenly decide to marry her off to such a man. Louise adds that he tried to meet a new girl every day, since fidelity was not for him. Leah asks in surprise why his parents think that with such a character, he will be able to find a wife. Louise states that this is probably only because they are the only ones in the village who are not married yet. Leah argues that this order of things is quite senseless and rather cruel. Leah says that not being able to choose your partner is terrible, and shares her story of unrequited love. Cedric immediately comes closer to her and asks if she was in a relationship with another man. Leah replies that no one forbids her to try herself in matters of the heart, since this is a natural need of any person. She also advises him not to ask girls unnecessary questions, especially in such a manner. Cedric asks not to look down on him, adding that he also had relationships that lasted quite a long time. Leah looks at him with a smile and offers to share interesting stories from the times when someone still paid attention to him. Cedric states that when he was young, he was always busy and had no time for true love. He says that when he became successful, many girls naturally wanted to be with him. However, instead of choosing one of them, he rushed after the girl of his dreams, whom he had always loved. Thanks to his incredible efforts and diligence, he was able to win her heart and make her fall in love with him. One day they were passing by the museum, and some strange reporter managed to take a photo of them and publish the photographs. Cedric reveals that they were never meant to be in a relationship, so their love was forced to end the way it did. Leah looks at him in surprise and asks who idols are and what that even means. She also reminds him that when they first met, he was a skinny kid from a poor village. Louise adds that over the past couple of years, she has not noticed any other people with whom he could be in a relationship. Cedric realizes that now is not the time to explain complex concepts to them and tell them that he made it all up. Leah immediately goes on the attack, saying that he is definitely bullying her and that he needs to answer for it. She moves a little further and suddenly freezes, realizing that they have finally reached the right place. She tells her comrades about this, and Cedric feels that a little more, and he would have already gone to the next world. Moving further, they come across the entrance to the Leaf Elf village, which is a huge gate. Once inside, they see a large number of elves who look in surprise at Louise, who decided to return. Almost immediately they are met by Teg, who angrily asks if his fiancée has come back here. Cedric admits that just looking at this man is starting to irritate him. Teg orders everyone to disperse so he can look at his wife, whom he has been waiting for so long. His gaze immediately falls on Leah, who looks very beautiful, but is obviously not an elf. Teg nevertheless continues to approach her, wondering if she is his long-awaited wife. Leah sternly asks if there is something wrong with his eyesight if he can't even tell the difference between a human and an elf. She adds that in the end he likes more feminine girls like Louise. He tries to put his hand on her head, but Cedric intervenes and immediately blocks his intention. Pushing him aside, he says that Teg doesn't know how to behave and, apparently, has been alone for too long. Teg asks who he is, and Cedric states that he is Louise's boss and has come here to talk to him. Teg takes this as an invitation to a fight, as he believes this man is keeping his wife away from him. He rushes forward, says that no one dares to interfere with his marriage, and tries to hit Cedric right in the face. After a few moments, an energy barrier appears next to Cedric's face, which is a very powerful barrier. Tag jumps to the side and begins waving his arm, which was seriously injured from the collision with the barrier. A moment later, Leah delivers a powerful punch right to his face, sending him flying and falling to the ground. Leah orders him to behave more politely and not even think about touching other people in her presence. Teg says that some pathetic man dared to enter their land and attack them without declaring war. Leah grabs her sword, explaining that it looks like they'll have to fight to deal with him. The elves rush forward, firing arrows along the way, but Leah easily repels all attacks. No swordsman in this village can match her skill level in swordsmanship, as she has more practice. She is also an amazing mage who can take out her opponents one after another. Walking up to Teg, she lowers her sword, leaving it only centimeters from his face. After this, she orders him to move so as not to complicate the situation even more. Cedric says that if she hadn't used her magic now, he would have completely forgotten that she had such power. After some time, the head of the elven tribe intervenes in the matter and demands that they stop this outrage. Teg looks happily at his leader, realizing that he will definitely take his side in the conflict that has arisen. Cedric also remains optimistic, saying that he can handle things on his own from now on. He then hands over the gift, explaining that he wants to thank the village for the contribution Louise made. The elven leader carefully asks his guards to accept this gift for him. Cedric continues to say that Louise is a wonderful employee, and he would like to have her work for them. The leader of the elves declares that they do not care about this, and now that she is here, they will never let her go. Cedric and Louise realize that persuading this man will take much more time and effort than they initially expected. Cedric asks the leader if they can't come to an agreement and resolve the issue peacefully. The leader claims he won't keep her at any cost, but she doesn't look like a reliable worker. Louise takes this as an insult, and Cedric understands that life here is very difficult for her. Louise's mother says she's heard about her adventures in the city, recalling that she worked in a potion shop and made mistakes. She also states that she does not believe that Louise developed any good qualities while working with them. The old elf says that the women of the wood elf tribe have never been fit for work. Tag claims that if she doesn't do a good job, there's nothing wrong with that because he likes clumsy women. Leah immediately orders him to shut up if he values his pathetic life, and Teg decides not to take any chances. Cedric apologizes to the elf and says that Louise is not at all the person she was imagined to be. He recounts how she expertly trained ostriches as they built their delivery company. He also states that Louise is now his secretary, who organizes work processes very well. He adds that she did make mistakes in the past, but all she needed was support and a chance to change. Stroking her head, he tells her that with investment comes amazing rewards if you work hard enough. Pointing to the gold, he says that this is Louise's wages, adding that this is only a small part of it. He expresses confidence that these elves understand perfectly well the value of the gold that was handed to them. He also says that during his work he established contacts with a large number of elven women, and they all worked well. He adds that their best employee is a girl who proved herself in her very first month of work. In conclusion, he says that a person's work is determined by his abilities. The elf declares that he will make an exception and give Louise a chance to prove herself and return to the city. He immediately adds that he will give them only 1 year, and if they do not achieve something worthwhile, Louise will return to the tribe. After this, he turns to Louise's mother and asks what she thinks about it, and she agrees with the decision. Louise begins to bow, saying that she is very grateful for the chance given to her. She declares that she will definitely succeed and will not betray the hopes placed in her by her family. The patriarch smiles and says that now everything depends solely on her, and she must show herself as best as possible. He also addresses Teg, saying that during this time he should not interfere with Louise's personal life. Changing his anger to mercy, he wonders why they don't rest here for a couple of days. Cedric, Louise, and Leah agree to the proposal, realizing that they are very tired from the journey. The patriarch offers to follow him, saying that he wants to show them something very interesting. Cedric looks around, noting that the environment between the wood elf villages is drastically different. The elves explain that this village is called Echo of the Vines. Cedric asks in surprise what Echo of the Vines is, realizing that he is hearing it for the first time. Louise explains that grapevines are plants that grow very often in this forest and are characteristic of it. She also says that in their village, everyone carries this flower with them, because it can be used to transmit sounds over a distance. Cedric realizes that this is an amazing magical thing that can be used to achieve a lot. He immediately asks her to show him one of these plants so that he can study it carefully. The patriarch fulfills his wish and shows Echo the grapevines, which are bluish flowers. Cedric approaches the plant, noticing that it is definitely different from a normal grapevine. After this, he asks the leader of the tribe how they use these flowers. Someone decides to demonstrate this using a small blue flower and a little magic. After this, he is offered to put his hand to the vine, and Cedric decides to follow the advice. After this, the patriarch does not explain anything and goes away some distance, enough so that his voice cannot be heard. Holding the flower to his mouth, he asks Cedric if he can hear him. Cedric uses the flower like a telephone and reports that he can hear him perfectly, as if they were standing right in front of each other. The patriarch explains that grapevines can live for 6 months after being picked and are capable of transmitting sounds. He also notes that basic magic must be used so that they can serve for communication. He immediately notes that the vines have limitations, and the connection cannot be transmitted over a distance of more than 100 meters. Leah says it's not bad, although not as good as communication magic, but it's pretty cheap, and Cedric compares it to a cell phone. Leah immediately asks him what it is, and he explains that it is just a rumor, and he just said something that doesn't make sense. Leah asks with a smile if he has already figured out how to use the vine to surpass the magic of communication. Cedric says he has some ideas, but it's too early to talk about any major breakthroughs. He suddenly turns to the patriarch with a question about whether it is possible to use selection to change the plant. In response to his surprise, the patriarch informs him that he would like to grow grapevines based on the distance of their transmission. The patriarch explains that he never thought about breeding a plant with a larger radius, since what they had was enough for hunting. One of the guards reports that deep in the forest, there are definitely vines that transmit information over a greater distance. The patriarch confirms this information, adding that such vines are quite rare, and they protect the forest. Cedric understands that he must not disturb the sacred sanctuaries and pluck these vines from the trees. He notes that the fact of their existence implies that his theory of selection is entirely correct. Cedric says that if this problem can be solved, the next step will be to figure out how to connect the vines together. The patriarch explains that the elves are not very knowledgeable about complex magic, so they cannot help him in this matter. Cedric realizes that the black butterfly must know something that can help fix this situation. However, he also understands that it will be unsafe to contact her, since she, being a necromancer, will certainly destroy the plants. Leah says that if he needs a powerful magician, she will be happy to help and provide her services. She also asks him why he is trying to solve so many problems, trying to find out his true intentions. Cedric smiles and explains that he actually wants to create another new business that he can make money from. He also understands that it will not be nearly as simple as express delivery or selling insurance contracts. However, thanks to this idea, he will be able to change the world and bring about a real technological revolution. Once upon a time, he was called one of the most successful young businessmen, and was asked whom he admired. Cedric immediately replies that he admires Steve Jobs and his contribution to the world the most. When asked why he chose such an idol, Cedric explains that he is close to the ideals of this person. Even now, finding himself in another world, he understands that he needs to change what is happening around him for the better. Despite the fact that this city is one of the most developed, there is still no way to communicate over long distances. Wealthy aristocrats and businessmen use expensive magic to send messages and receive notifications. At this time, commoners were stuck at the stage of writing simple letters or holding personal meetings, which were not always possible to arrange. If this is the case in the most developed city, then things are at about the same level throughout the world. If it can enable common people to communicate easily, quickly, and cheaply, it will be a great commercial success. Meanwhile, the elf says that he can now take them to a place where they can finally stop and rest. Leah approaches him to discuss something important. She asks if he really wants to use these plants to make it easier to use communication magic. Cedric explains that not everyone can use this magic, and he wants to find a way for everyone to have access to it. Leah expresses doubt about the possibility of realizing these ambitious plans, saying that she is not sure that it is possible. Cedric reassures her, explaining that he is confident of success and that they just need to solve 2 problems. He adds that to begin with, he needs plants that will work over a long distance. He also wants to increase their reliability and ensure that their range is at least within the city limits. Secondly, he needs to solve the problem of breeding different species of these plants in order to establish production. According to his plan, due to the different requirements, he will need to develop more than one type of these plants, since they currently do not interbreed. He wants to solve this problem by hiring a highly qualified magician who can establish interaction even between different types of plants. After this, he turns to Leah, reminding her that she claimed to know such a person. Leah explains that she understands that these demands are quite difficult, but she is willing to work for him if he pays her. Cedric states that this will not be a problem, after which he begins to think about the fact that he will still have to solve the problem of selection. The elven patriarch asks him why he is discussing this with the sorceress so intensely. Cedric asks his interlocutor if they use selective breeding when growing crops in the village. One of the elves replies that most of them know perfectly well how this is done and are familiar with this method. Cedric immediately asks for support in breeding echolooses, as this is extremely important. The elf smiles and says that he will cooperate without any problems, since it seems very promising to him. Cedric decides to go further and asks to sell him the entire village so that business goes even better. Such a bold proposal greatly frightens the patriarch, since he did not plan to sell his people into slavery. He asks if this is some kind of weird joke, hinting that he doesn't like the proposal. Cedric reassures him, explaining that he simply wants to take the village with him when he becomes rich. He notes that most villagers understand how selection works and are very valuable employees. One of the guards states that this is excluded and prohibited by ancient rules. He adds menacingly that the protector of the forest should not interfere in other people's affairs. Elf explains that they don't mind helping with the breeding, but they don't want to get involved in something on such a large scale. Cedric says that all they need to do is harvest, so nothing will change dramatically for them. He also adds that he won't have to send anyone, as the residents themselves know the production processes. Cedric assures them that he is not forcing them to work for free, and if they can grow these plants, he will help improve their standard of living. He further emphasizes that this will not have a significant impact on the village, but will significantly improve the quality of life. One of the elven guards says that this still needs to be discussed, and that there is no need to make hasty decisions. The elder elf remarks that perhaps the idea is worth investing in and taking a risk. After this, Cedric asks how much they are willing to pay him to agree to this. He says that he is ready to pay 3,000 coins a month, but the elf thinks that this is not enough. Cedric says he's willing to raise the stake to 4,000 coins, which gives them pause. However, once he increases the rate to 5,000 coins per month, the villagers agree to the offer. The elf clears his throat and says that he will inform the villagers so that they will be ready to help. It also sets limits on what can be touched and what is best left untouched. Cedric announces that he would like to obtain a plant with a range of 10,000 meters, and in the event of a scientific breakthrough he will pay a reward. He states that these conditions are acceptable, adding that everyone else will work hard. Cedric also says that he would like to keep Louise in the village so that she can help with the organization of production. He notes that she probably knows the area better and has a lot of administrative skills. He orders the other elves to take good care of her and treat her with respect. Louise asks if he intends to leave her here forever, but Cedric explains that they first need to find a mage to solve the problem. He adds that this task is incredibly important to him, and she is the only one he can rely on. That evening, the chief held a banquet for them to thank the dear guests who had come to see him. When the villagers learn that they have a chance to get rich, they are truly delighted. Louise's friends understand that she is very capable, and this means that she will be treated with respect. The next day, Cedric says goodbye to his comrades, explaining that they will soon come to visit him. Leah asks how much he wants for the plant, to which he explains that he desperately needs something similar to a walkie-talkie. Leah asks what it is, and Cedric quickly explains the topic, reporting on new developments. In conclusion, he says that it should be similar to the magic of communication, but the process will take place between two people. He asks if Leah knows any magic that would allow such contact to be made. Leah explains that there must be something similar to this magic, and calls it tracking magic. She adds that the caster creates a mark on a person or object that only they can remove. Cedric listens to her carefully, and comes to the conclusion that this is most likely not what he is looking for. He tries to rephrase his wishes again, but Leah interrupts him. After this, Leah states that her magical knowledge is very limited, and she will not be able to understand what he really wants. Smiling, she reveals that she is actually a magic knight and not a true wizard. She adds that all her magic is focused on combat, and she doesn't learn anything she doesn't need. However, she will be able to introduce him to a powerful spellcaster who will surely know what needs to be done. Cedric thanks her sincerely and asks where they can find this spellcaster. Leah replies that the caster's name is Phil, and he is a high-level mage from the Tower of Light, which is located in the Magic Academy. She also emphasizes that the academy is connected to a neighboring kingdom, and is located approximately 3 days' journey from this city. Cedric says that in that case he should return to the company to sort out some things, and then they will go to the academy. He also adds that when they arrive, Leah should act as if she were his bodyguard. Leah smiles and notes that he knows exactly how to succeed in society. Cedric menacingly declares that his adventures do not end here, and his next goal is to go to the Allied Kingdom. Once home, he turns to his ostrich, explaining that they will have to travel a lot and work a lot. Leah approaches them with her horse and informs them that they are a little late due to unforeseen circumstances. Upon seeing a new friend, the protagonist's ostrich immediately begins to behave more interestedly. Cedric tries to calm him down, explaining that this is a horse in front of him, not a member of his species. After this, he decides to cheer him up by saying that once they finish, he will find him a good match. Leah asks what he's mumbling about, and Cedric quickly explains that she imagined it again. After some time, they set up camp to spend the night in the forest after a long and tiring journey. Looking at Leah's sword, he notes that it looks much better than the previous one. Leah smiles and says that her master Kalgas gave her this magic sword, and said that it suits her very well. Cedric notes that he heard she was the strongest female swordsman in the world, and Leah confirms that this is not far from the truth. She also reveals that her parents died when she was little, so she grew up in an imperial orphanage. The orphanage almost sold her into slavery, but Kalgas saved her to make her one of her students. Leah has undergone numerous trainings and thus became one of the best sword masters. When she grew up, she became a mercenary to follow in her mentor's footsteps. However, soon after, Kalgas disappeared, leaving her alone, and has not appeared since. Leah says she has been looking for it for a long time, but has still not been able to make progress. However, she states that she has no intention of giving up and will use this trip to find someone who can improve her sword. After this, she wonders why she is telling him all this at all, and then wishes him good night. With these words, she goes into the tent and quickly falls into a deep sleep. However, moments later, Cedric has a new problem as the butterfly princess materializes into this world. Cedric points out that they might be heard, but she explains that if she stays quiet, nothing will happen. Cedric wonders what happened and why she decided to suddenly appear in front of him. The butterfly princess replies that nothing special happened, and she simply remembered the conversation she overheard. Cedric asks if she has any important information, and Butterfly Princess states that she doesn't know where Kalgas went. She also recommends that he pay attention to his problems, noting that soon everyone will find out that he is not of this world. Cedric says he can't change his habit of caring for others. The Butterfly Princess says that she would like to go to his true world with him, and Cedric is very surprised. However, the princess quickly begins to yawn and says that she is very tired, after which she wishes him good night. Cedric is not surprised that the necromantic princess is incredibly fond of sleep and appears very rarely. The next morning they set out and Cedric feels very tired and has had very little sleep. Leah asks him what happened and he replies that he is very tired and still hasn't recovered. Suddenly they find themselves confronted by several skeletons in full combat gear. Leah says that the Empire is located close to the Black Kingdom, so such meetings are normal here. Grabbing her sword, she explains that this won't be a particularly difficult battle for her, and he can rely on her. For several days on the road, no matter what monsters appeared, she easily defeated them. Soon the journey finally comes to an end, and Cedric sees something amazing in front of him. His attention is drawn to a gigantic academy of magic that rises above the large hills, reaching into the sky. They find themselves on streets that are very different from the city in which he has already settled, and to which he is accustomed. Cedric notes that this small town has a huge number of wizards of all ranks and powers. Leah explains that the place is heavily influenced by the Magic Academy, so it can be said that the city is magical. Cedric discovers that most of the clothing sold in the area is for mages. The bookstores here are also filled with books related exclusively to magic in all its forms. The food deserves a special mention, as it looks particularly disgusting to anyone who looks at it. Leah smiles and says that the magic stone he bought in that city can be sold here. Leah also shows him a magical forge where many different weapons can be created. Cedric reflects that as soon as he finishes his business, he will definitely come here. Dismounting, he says that it is rare to find such a place, but he is already tired of visiting. Cedric explains that he is willing to take her to some restaurant, and her eyes immediately fill with curiosity. She points to the pastry shop, noting that it must be very tasty, and pulls him along with her. After a while, Cedric looks at her and asks if she has a sweet tooth. Leah replies that if the body does not have enough sugar, it will be very difficult for it to function. Cedric turns around at the familiar sounds and sees a man he has met many times before. He remembers that this is the same Siegfried, and Leah notes that there are many students who attend such establishments. Cedric looks closely at what is happening and says that students do not come here for fun. He explains that there are also young couples here who come exclusively for dates. Leah immediately leaves the cafe, noting that it is already late and they need to leave urgently. They find themselves in front of a magical academy that some call the Chinese Hogwarts. Cedric can't help but notice that it looks incredibly majestic and beautiful. They are almost immediately stopped by a guard who asks who they are and what they need here. Leah explains that she is Phil's friend and has come to visit him today, after which the guard asks them to wait a little. A hologram appears and asks what brings her here, and Leah says she wants to ask him a few questions. Phil turns to his guards, asking them to let these people in as quickly as possible. Cedric asks who Phil is, assuming he is probably a handsome man or a mysterious old man. Leah smiles and tells him that he should be prepared to be very surprised. After a while they meet Phil, and he says that he hasn't seen his girlfriend for a long time. It turns out that Phil is a rather fat and unattractive man who nevertheless has a talent for magic. Cedric immediately shakes his hand and informs him that he is currently the owner of the largest insurance company. Phil haughtily ignores him and turns to Leah, taking her hand, saying that he is very glad she has visited. Leah explains that they came here solely because Cedric was looking for him. Phil asks who he even is, and Cedric is surprised that he didn't even listen to him when they first met. However, he decides not to make any unnecessary noise and repeats that he is the owner of the largest insurance company. Phil is surprised that the businessman has suddenly become interested in magic, and Cedric explains that it's a long story. Phil says he can't let Leah just stand there and invites them to follow him into his office. He asks Leah what their relationship is like, and she replies that they are just friends, although Phil thinks otherwise. After some time, they find themselves in Phil's office, which is littered with various magical artifacts. Leah passes him the best black tea she could find, adding magical herbs. After this, he quickly turns to Cedric and asks what he wants to know about communication magic. Cedric tries to explain what he really wants, but Phil quickly cuts him off. He says that he is only interested in beauty and food, and if the conversation gets too boring, he will simply leave. Leah asks why he's acting like a little child, but Cedric explains that it's nothing to worry about. He confidently states that he has a large-scale project and that he needs to collaborate with an experienced magician for it. Phil expresses some interest and asks how much he would be willing to pay for it. Cedric says the project is still in the development stage, so the budget is initially small. For help in completing the product, Cedric states that he is ready to pay him as much as 3,000 gold coins. Phil notes that for a great magician like him, such a price would be prohibitively low. Cedric asks Phil to name his price, but Phil states that there is no sincerity or interest in his words. He also expresses hatred towards businessmen with a lot of money, and adds that magic should not be used by them. Leah asks him what he means and reminds him that Cedric really does want to learn new magical practices. Cedric explains that it's no big deal and admits that he may not have seemed sincere enough. After this, he says that he already understood that under any circumstances, Phil will not want to help him with the project. However, he confidently says that he will find another person who is ready to change the world. Turning around, he says that Phil can stay in this place and indulge in pleasures as much as he wants. Leah expresses disappointment in Phil, noting that he embarrassed himself in front of an important guest. Phil realizes that such opportunities cannot be missed and immediately orders them to stop. Cedric smiles softly, realizing that this is exactly what he was trying to achieve with his cunning manipulations. Looking at them, he declares that he is giving Cedric 3 minutes to tell him about his plan to change the world. Within a few months, Tencent is successfully selling tens of thousands of grown plants. These devices are popular with people from different regions and walks of life due to their accessibility. Thanks to this, they learned to communicate with each other with incredible ease, and the devices also became a great gift. Officials understand that this is a very powerful tool that allows them to contact different people. Even ordinary people are beginning to use these plants to communicate in difficult times. That same grandmother buys them for her son, and he carefully hides the iron can so that it does not get damaged. Julia sees one of her clients off, noting that she will look forward to his return visit. Suddenly, another client contacts her and she says that she is now free and that people can come to her. Julia replies that she feels incredibly tired, and since then, clients have been coming almost continuously. This gives her a wonderful idea, which she decides to implement at that very moment. The pharmacy manager orders his couriers to deliver materials to another company as quickly as possible. After some time, Julia contacts them to place an order for 1 jelly potion. In the national church of the neighboring state, church representatives are beginning to see this as a serious threat. From their point of view, the spread of this plant will weaken faith, which will have very negative consequences. One of the elders claims that the threat must be prevented, and to do this, an assassin must be sent to destroy the creator. In the Eastern Empire, senior advisors come to the conclusion that distributing the device would not be the best solution. However, the more progressive advisors suggest inviting Cedric to personally convince Her Majesty. This news reaches the dark state ruled by a mysterious necromancer, and his servant informs him of it. He asks about the situation, and the vampire explains that an interesting product called the magic vine has appeared. The necromancer notes that the undead army is doing just fine without this device, and suggests something insignificant. The vampire says the product is very popular, and they need to learn all its secrets to maintain its effectiveness. The necromancer understands that such things need to be carefully monitored and asks what kind of device it is. He adds that they need to gather as much information about the vine as possible to keep up. The vampire explains that, according to the data, the vine is a type of flora with a magical connection. The principle of operation is that as long as there are two branches of the same species, it is possible to communicate at a distance. He also learns that the inventor has gone to the Tower of Light to request help from a high-level magic caster. This allowed him to apply identifiers to newly grown vines using simple strings of numbers. The vampire shows how to hold the device so that they can communicate with each other. The necromancer listens carefully and realizes that this sounds like a regular phone call. Rising from his throne, he declares that he has finally found a man who travels the world. He proudly notes that we need to find him and talk to him to share our knowledge. The vampire asks what he means, and the necromancer realizes that he has said too much. He tries to change the subject and claims that this man's creative abilities are in no way inferior to his own ideas. The vampire says that if he can help in any way, he is ready to listen to any orders. The necromancer states that he would like to contact the inventor of this device in a friendly manner and talk face to face. He specifically emphasizes that violence should not be used under any circumstances, and the vampire notes that he understands everything perfectly. After some time, he is replaced by a mysterious demoness who looks quite threatening. The necromancer asks her about what happened, and a smile appears on her face. The creepy demoness announces that she has finally found the butterfly princess that has been sought for so long. The necromancer immediately perks up and asks where the girl went and where she is now. The demoness says that since the princess was kidnapped, she has been searching for her whereabouts and has discovered traces of magic in the city of Feng. She also notes that the Black Kingdom didn't send anyone else there except her, so she patrolled the area for a long time. Thus, she was able to confirm that the butterfly princess was definitely there, and most likely in captivity. The necromancer becomes angry and demands that the princess be returned, and if necessary, the demoness must destroy the kidnapper. Meanwhile, Cedric wakes up in his room, completely new and more comfortable, in the house. A maid comes to him and tells him that breakfast is ready, and he replies that he will come down soon. He made a lot of money selling echo rods and was able to afford more luxurious apartments. He now owns 2 companies, each of which is growing exponentially, generating more and more income. He has been living here for 2 years now and can finally confidently declare that he has achieved amazing success. After that, he heads to the kitchen to have his favorite breakfast. The maid asks him if he is going to travel today, and Cedric says that he will be going to a neighboring kingdom. The Eastern Kingdom Trade Association invited him as a guest, and he decides not to refuse such an opportunity. From his point of view, if he could convince the queen of the advantages of his device, he would be able to reach the international level. After this, he leaves the house and tells the maid that she must keep a close eye on him. Approaching his ostrich, he remarks that he will always ride on it, even if he could afford a carriage made of pure gold. Having settled himself comfortably, he commands the ostrich to move forward, understanding that it will move at an optimal speed. There are 7 major kingdoms in this world, each of which represents a very significant market. In the center of the 7 kingdoms is the city in which he lives, and because of this, it becomes a center of trade. The Eastern Kingdom is the strongest, and in terms of economic power, this city cannot be compared to it. Therefore, if he can open subsidiaries in the Eastern Kingdom, the profits may exceed his imagination. To ensure the success of the mission, he spent a lot of money on hiring bodyguards. However, having enough people is still not enough, so special equipment needs to be prepared. Thanks to the increased financial influx, he was finally able to fulfill his long-held dream. He ordered from the dwarves one thing, the production of which he had been eagerly awaiting for many months. And now, after a long wait, he was finally able to afford a high-powered robotic suit. Cedric inspects the armor, noting that it looks perfect, and the dwarves claim that it is the best equipment they have ever created. He asks the chief what capabilities the armor has, and the dwarf replies that it is better to demonstrate them outside the city. After some time, the bodyguards reach the meeting place and see a monstrous colossus in front of them. Cedric turns to the dwarf and says that he can begin demonstrating the iron suit. The blacksmith quickly climbs into the suit, closes the pilot compartment and begins activating the main systems. He reveals that each hand contains a magical cannon capable of firing with a force equivalent to 5 magical stones. A moment later, he takes aim at a large pile of rocks and fires a laser, which instantly destroys them. Cedric is very pleased with the result. noting that he could not have dreamed of more. He also notes that by reducing the power, the rate of fire can be increased and suppressive fire can be used. He talks about the suit's incredible mobility, demonstrating the built-in wheels. Accelerating at full speed, the suit crashes into a pile of rocks, causing a small explosion. Cedric immediately rushes forward and asks the engineer if everything is okay and how he feels. The dwarf replies that he did not receive a single scratch, since the armor is capable of absorbing a large amount of damage. Cedric also says that carrying the armor is no problem and activates the ring. A moment later, a powerful energy consumes the suit and hides it in an unknown dimension. The economist is very surprised to see this, realizing that an incredible artifact has just been demonstrated to him. Cedric addresses the mercenaries, saying that they now have the armor they need, which means it's time to move on. They say goodbye to the engineer and thank him for the armor, while he wishes them a speedy and safe journey. All this time they are being watched by mysterious people in dark hoods and cloaks for greater secrecy. They talk to each other and note that Cedric cannot be allowed to reach the Eastern Kingdom alive. At this time, they are being watched by a demoness who finds it very funny that many people want to kill this guy. Smiling slyly, she declares that she too really wants to see what abilities he possesses. After he gathers all the mercenaries, they move east to reach the kingdom as quickly as possible. Thanks to their fighting power and training, they do not face any serious problems along the way. The squad leader communicates with the scouts and notes that the situation is absolutely calm. Cedric says that seeing all the bodyguards so serious actually calms him down a lot. The soldiers respond that they have received good pay and will therefore work at the highest level of professionalism. They also add with a smile that if they suddenly relax, the captain will definitely find out about it and punish them. With a smile, he announces that if the mission is successful, each of them will receive a bonus upon returning home. They rejoice at this, realizing that they will finally be able to improve their equipment and reach a new level of prosperity. The soldiers immediately begin to dream and discuss how they will spend their bonuses. The commander advises to concentrate, saying that the mission is still in full swing, so it is too early to dream. He also recommends telling those walking behind to move forward. At that very moment, a small dagger flies towards him, which is quickly reflected by a blow. Cedric wonders what is going on here as the warriors push him back. The assassins watching them note that the mercenaries, on whom they spent a lot of money, will be difficult targets. Cedric looks at the killers and wonders who they are and why they were sent here. A mysterious hooded figure claims to have come to take his life, and Cedric doesn't understand why. Looking at his improvised devices, they note that his inventions could destroy the world, and this cannot be allowed to happen. The mercenary captain says the time for talking is over, and they must attack if they want to survive. He also notes that he has already noticed people who have taken up positions and smiles. He says that they have been found out, which means their desire is his order, giving a non-verbal signal to his allies. They slowly emerge from the trees, revealing their location, since there is no point in hiding anymore. The next moment they rush into the attack, hoping to break the people's resistance. At first, they succeed with varying success, since the mercenary captain is a fairly experienced fighter. However, there are quite a lot of these assassins, and they have several waves of reinforcements, so dealing with them is not easy. They give the command to evacuate their employer as quickly as possible to ensure his safety. Cedric says that there is no need for this, because he did not spend a lot of money on this operation in vain. Using his ring, he summons a metal suit that was long overdue for combat testing. Such a powerful artifact can turn the tide on the battlefield and put the enemy to flight in a matter of seconds. However, just as he is about to put on the suit, one of the church assassins appears behind him. The assassin charges forward, hoping to strike quickly in the back and kill Cedric. However, his plans are disrupted by one of the archers, who fires a projectile straight towards the killer. The killer manages to dodge, but Cedric manages to climb into the metal suit and completely enclose himself in it. Standing next to his comrades, he declares that the time has come to enter the battle and crush the enemies. The church temple assassins throw poisonous knives, hoping to end the fight without getting into close contact. However, these attacks prove futile as Cedric activates the force field, declaring that it is now his turn. Within moments, he opens fire with all weapons to overwhelm the enemy with a barrage of firepower. Of course, in the current situation, no one can protect themselves from weapons with an explosive component. Cedric decides to interrogate the only prisoner to find out who sent him here. The sectarian says that he could be killed, but he still won't say a word so as not to give away his employers. Within moments, a mysterious magic pierces through him, almost instantly sucking all the life out of his body. The demoness is surprised that this is all that the kingdom and its sectarians are capable of. The soldiers immediately form a defense around their client, but the demoness does not stop her attacks. She kills all the soldiers in the blink of an eye, leaving Cedric all alone. Just as the demon forces are moving to take his soul, the butterfly princess suddenly comes to his aid. She immediately grabs his hand and advises him to run without looking back until she says it's time to rest. The demons watch him in surprise, trying to understand what just happened. Cedric asks her why the demons are running away, and Butterfly Princess explains that they can't handle that old witch alone. Moments later, a powerful explosion occurs between them, throwing Cedric aside. The demons fly up to them again, demanding that they treat her with more respect and trying to understand why she is running away. She also says that finding the kidnapped princess was not easy, but now she can be free. After this, she turns to Cedric and informs him that the princess's kidnappers must be destroyed. Butterfly magic comes to his aid again, allowing him to survive a powerful attack of demonic magic. The butterfly princess claims that he did not kidnap her, and that all the accusations are pathetic speculation, but the demoness does not believe her. The demoness asks if he really didn't lock her in the dimensional ring for a whole year, adding that it is also a national treasure. The butterfly princess explains that she was not locked in and that she can come and go at any time, just as she does now. The demoness tries to catch her off guard in order to deal with her and Cedric. Jumping aside, he declares that talking is pointless now, since she only understands the language of violence. The next second he summons a suit of metal armor to hide in. The demoness notices with a smile that he has finally summoned his robot, which he is obviously proud of. She then attacks him, claiming he is nothing but a pile of rusty metal, and destroys him almost instantly. The butterfly princess doesn't give Cedric time to grieve over the loss of an expensive toy, and saves him. The demoness says that this time she will not allow them to escape, as she has been looking for them for too long. Once she gets there, she immediately puts her to sleep, apologizing for her actions in advance. The butterfly princess quickly loses consciousness, and Cedric realizes that he is in big trouble. The demoness immediately grabs him by the head and declares that it is time to deal with him. Meanwhile, the vampire infiltrates Cedric's headquarters, thinking that the creators of this device are probably here. He understands that there are too many people here, and he won't be able to enter in the usual way without disguise. However, he decides to use magic to create the appearance of normal clothing. Disguised as an ordinary person, he enters, looking around, hoping to find the right person. A few minutes later, he comes across his uncle, who is calmly going about his business. He immediately understands that this is not a company employee in front of him, and tries to find out what he is doing here. The vampire tries to pretend to be a writer, but his uncle informs him that Mr. Cedric is currently away. He also notices a strange grin and small fang-like details in the vampire's appearance. He asks him if everything is okay, questioning the fact that there is a human in front of him. To reveal it, the vampire uses his hypnosis skill and asks where their boss went. Uncle reports that he has found several mercenaries in the Eastern Kingdom, and they should still be on their way. The vampire realizes that he has learned everything he needs to know and decides to catch up with the target as quickly as possible. Turning around, he realizes that there is not a second to waste, and he quickly leaves while his uncle comes to his senses. After some time, he heads to the ambush site and looks at the huge pile of corpses in surprise. He tries to figure out what happened and realizes that a fight broke out between the mercenaries and the National Guild assassins. Noticing the mercenary captain, he realizes that the death was caused by magic, which means that someone he knew was here. He tries to summon the spirit to interrogate it and get more information about what happened. The risen ghost reveals that while they were accompanying Master Cedric, they were attacked by assassins sent by the guild. After this, the ghost adds that a demon girl appeared who killed them all, leaving them no chance. The vampire listens attentively to the story, realizing that it is most likely about his colleagues. Having thanked the ghost for his help, he carefully closes its eyes, advises it to sleep peacefully, and leaves this place. Sniffing, he realizes that there are no other bodies here, which means that Mr. Cedric is probably still alive. He rushes to his master, hoping that Cedric will remain alive until his return. Meanwhile, they bring the unconscious princess to the necromancer. The necromancer examines her carefully and discovers that some kind of spell has been cast on her. Looking closer, he notices that the spell has put her to sleep, and asks about the details of the enchantment. The demoness explains that the princess resisted, but she could not see her, so she had to use soft power. The necromancer says there is no need for this, as he knows that such an operation could not go unnoticed. He also asks her who kidnapped the princess. The demoness reports that the kidnapper turned out to be an ordinary person who did not possess magic, but who earned a lot of money in business. This information greatly surprises the necromancer, who is not accustomed to encountering something so extraordinary. He notes that the butterfly princess is a master of death magic, and an ordinary person could not kidnap her. He assumes that she probably ran away and thinks that this is the man who killed her parents and is now trying to take revenge. He asks if the kidnapper is alive, or if she has already been killed, to which the demoness declares that she will torment him with death. The necromancer understands that this is a just punishment for a person involved in such a tragedy. Meanwhile, Cedric comes to his senses and realizes that he must find a way to get out of here. A strange woman, resembling a spider, appears before him and says that no one will be able to escape from the web. Cedric claims that he will never give up, because that is his very nature. He also tries to bribe her by claiming that if she releases him, she will acquire riches she never even dreamed of. Cedric adds that if she doesn't need money, she will get a job that will bring her incredible fame. Spider-Woman realizes there is only one way to stop this man, and shoots a web into his face. She reports that he talks too much for a man who is about to go to death row. After examining him, she says that he looks quite cute and suggests they play a little. After a while, a demoness appears behind her, who advises her to step aside and not torment the prey. Approaching Cedric, she uses death magic and asks where they should start. With each step, she becomes more and more threatening and asks if he has any wishes. Cedric hesitates to answer specifically and says that she should choose what she thinks is best. The demoness is surprised that he is on the verge of death, but continues to chatter like a parrot. Cedric points out that if she wants to kill him, she can do it easily, and there is no point in torturing him. The demoness smiles and says that he has many questions that she would like to ask. After this, she squeezes his throat and asks him what his relationship is with the butterfly princess. Cedric explains that he never kidnapped her, and that she came to his aid many times. The demoness thrusts forward her sharp claws and asks why the princess helps him again and again. She reminds that she did not want to return to the kingdom, but when she ran away, she took him with her. The demoness is surprised that he cannot cast spells, but the princess still chooses to protect him. She angrily expresses the hope that he did not seduce her with sweet words and empty promises. Cedric senses the lonely man's doubts and claims that he did nothing wrong because he is a decent person. He says that he simply found her interesting and decided to follow him. The demoness strikes quickly, leaving several deep cuts on his body. She adds that he doesn't seem to be going to behave well, so she will think about deciding his fate. After this, she decides to try his blood to find out whether he is an ordinary person or someone chosen. She notes that his blood tastes different from other humans, making him more interesting than she initially thought. Taking a few steps forward, she says curiously that he might be unique and taste different from the others. With these words, she tries to kiss Cedric, but this is not an easy kiss and is quite dangerous. Cedric realizes that the demoness is using magic to suck the life force out of him. Having played enough, she says that she hasn't tasted such a delicious person for a long time and would gladly leave him alive. Looking at him, she notices that he looks like a delicious dinner, and she cannot bring herself to kill him. After this, she orders her servants to throw him into the labyrinth of death so that he can suffer there. As she leaves, she tells him that the death labyrinth is full of entertainment, so he can enjoy the rest of his time. A few moments later, the doors open and he is thrown into an unknown space, left completely alone. One can only hope that the hero will be able to escape from this trap, or that the butterfly princess or the vampire will manage to save him.